All right. Morning, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good to see you, Rabbit. Nice to have you on board, buddy. Hopefully, everybody can hear me okay. I feel like things aren't working quite as well today for some reason. Don't know if it's me or if it's the just life in general, but here we are. Give me a second here. I've got a little bit of um, stuff done. I got to share the link here, so give me a second. I'm being slow today. I got way off of my schedule, so my sleep pattern's a little messed up right now. So my apologies. There and live now and there. Okay, so we're all put out there. Yeah, I know, Rabbit. It's well, just you and me in chat and stuff, but we got a couple people watching, so just kind of a slow day. It's Christmas weekend. People are otherwise occupied with family and things. It's understandable. I'm okay with that. I'd much rather that than have them sitting here watching me. Oh, really, PM? I'm shadow banned that bad that you couldn't find me, even though you. Dang. Well, my apologies. I'm glad you found me again. Did you send me a friend request or follow? Friend request. A follow. Wow. It's going to be one of those days, I can tell, guys. Anyway, send me a follow and I'll make sure and follow you back, buddy. Yeah, yes, last night there was a bunch of people got nailed. Bards got nailed. A bunch of people. You couldn't search it all. You actually had to click on it from a tweet. Wow. Well, I may be next or I may be soon. It is what it is. If it happens, it happens. I'm not going to get too worked up about it. I am going to discuss one person. Well, maybe we shouldn't do that on the air. I'll be a good boy. Yeah, that's who I was going to discuss, Rabbit, but we'll just leave it be. If you're following that particular account, I would be cautious, is all I'm going to say. There's no way that an account that goes away and comes back has 30,000 followers within 24 hours. No way. Completely and totally orchestrated is the term I'll use. Silence? Oh no, I didn't notice that. Hang on. You're making me go look now. God, I hope not. I love silence. Silence is damn good people. Oh no, they did get silence. How the hell did they get him and not me? Oh no, that sucks. Yeah, because he was in a couple groups I was in. And he's not even in those anymore. So he is gone. Damn it. That's upsetting. Bards is already back. Kilroy rises. Hang on, I'll tell you. Here, I'll put it in here. That's the new Bard's account. You're just too self-conscious, Muncie. CJ, yeah, I have bones to pick with CJ too. So CJ is another one of those that kind of falls into another issue, but I don't make a big deal out of it, so we'll just leave it be. Welcome tag. I see a car of some sort. It's orange. Yeah, look at that a little closer. I can't. We'll see what kind of car that is. Looks like a Duster. From my size of a about a 1/4 inch diameter avatar I can see there. Happy Sunday, everybody. Glad you could join us. Kind of waiting for until we get about 50 people in watching, then we'll start rolling. I kind of like to give it some time here. A lot of you hadn't noticed, quite a few accounts got nailed last night. Honestly, I'm not sure how I survived, because one of my buddies got nailed. Silence do good. So we'll and Bards, obviously. I mean, I'm not exactly what I would call tight with them, but I mean, we ran in the same circles. So it's kind of amazing that I survived. I guess I don't pose that much of a threat. I stay away from the current hot topic stuff, so that I think keeps me flying under the radar a little bit more so than some of the other guys that are doing what hot topic of the day. So I do have a backup. I have both Parler and Gab. I am at Snarkish Nano on both. I do not post on either. I will not post on either unless I get deplatformed. And even if I get deplatformed, I'm probably going to go right back to Twitter. You'll know it's me. I mean, it'll be obvious as hell. I'm pretty hard. I don't hide very well. But Twitter's where the battle is. Parler and Gab are just echo chambers, and I'm not interested in being just talking to like-minded. We're here to get the information out and to help people learn and grow and expand beyond what they know. So, going to those other platforms, it's a good way to stay in contact with other people, but it is not an effective platform for continuing to do what I do and what other people do. And that's why we keep coming back. Some people have been deplatformed so many times that it's hard for them to continue to come back. And I understand. I mean, it's taken me how long to build, 30,000 followers. And I would be upset if I lost that, because honestly, it's taken a long time for me, because I've tried to do it, honestly, by building by, oh, it's a Willys? God, I can't tell from that picture. Looks like it's got a long, low grill opening, like a high angle, not the, the tall Willys grill, but cool. Car guy. Closet car guy. I just don't talk about it much. Yeah, my down here a little further in my piles of stuff, I've got things like this. Oops, got to show it at the thing. Some of my other things. I've had a couple of my vehicles and magazines, so closet car guy. Hence the bird, huh, Cindy? Oh, good. I'm glad to see people are downloading books. That's great. I've got a bunch of people that have been giving me some stuff in return, so I've got some more work for me to do. Making sure my Jack in the Box doesn't have a pedo symbol on it. All right, what do we got here? Boy, we're not getting a bunch of people. We're only up to 33. That's unusual. So I must be starting to get clipped here on YouTube too. So yeah, it is what it is. Or maybe Atlantis and Little St. James just isn't that interesting to people. That's okay. I know that not everything I do is going to grab everybody's attention. So yeah, people are downloading everything, and I do have everything archived and backed up, and all my threads I can recreate if I don't have it backed up. In fact, oh, were you able to get a hold of him and find out that, Muncie? Okay. That's good. Well, I mean, we're redoing it here, so I'll have my own copy here. So, we're and I appreciate that, Rabbit, and I really do. Anyway, well, are we gonna get? We're up to 34. Woohoo! Hey, Ghost, 36. Man, this is slow today. Let's see here. Trying to see if we're getting any. Chad. Chad posted. Oh boy, people want me to give their stuff shout outs. All right. Well, I guess we're up to 40, so people are starting to come in. Just a slow trickle in. All right, let's go ahead and get going today. So, as some of you know, I kind of get off into some of the weird stuff every once in a while. And this thread or this whole thing there's a lot of speculation here. I'll just go ahead and say that. Oh, I forgot to fix something. Well, when we get to the Google Maps part of it, I'll have to spend a minute fixing something. But there's admittedly some speculation involved in what we're going to be discussing today. And if I were to say otherwise, I'd be lying. The bottom line is that there's some strong possibilities here. One of my big things is I want to discover true history. I know our history is completely and totally hidden from us. We don't know the truth of so much. Starting from the beginning all the way to just even 40 or 50 years ago. I mean, we can see them modifying it as we pass in time and how it changes. So I mean, what's been done to stuff from 4,000 years ago and 10,000 years ago and 20 and 70 and 120,000 years ago, or even millions of years ago? We don't know. I mean, they tell us that we can't write, but one of the things, or we weren't documenting back then, but the thing I keep pointing out to people is the human, as we know, the human body and the human brain has not changed appreciably in over 200,000 years. Okay. Now, let's think about that for a minute. I mean, let's put those numbers into perspective here. 200,000 years. Okay. Modern history, recorded modern history, AD, is 2,000 years. Okay. That's 100 times longer than that time frame. So just the past 2,000 years, which is for humans, that's quite a long time. 200,000 years. Okay. I mean, that's a long time, and we're basically the same then as we are now. So that means that back then we had the capability of having the same thoughts, the same rationality, the same reason, all of it. Okay. We're not born with natural innate knowledge. We're not born with natural innate abilities as far as reasoning and thought processes. we're all born at the same level. We're all created equal, literally. Okay. So that means that, I mean, and the information input is different today, and I'll grant that. So, I mean, we do get a lot more information quicker, earlier now than we would have, 20,000 years ago. Okay. It's different lifestyle, different world. But what's to say that we haven't had civilization peaks that we're not aware of? Okay. Egypt is a perfect example of that. There's stuff that's carved on some of the walls in Egypt that is just astounding. I'm going to say this wrong. It's Degendra or something. Dejeds, I believe. There's a little flower bulb looking things that look like old, tubes. I don't have one out. But I mean, so basically they're showing us things and they look like electrical, and and Egypt definitely had electricity. We know they did. We've found batteries, lemon-based batteries from Egypt. So we know that they had the technology. We know they had the knowledge. So maybe they had different ways of going about it than we've discovered. All right. Howdy, everybody. All the new people in here. It's good to have you in here. So with that in mind, we have to remember that we are not necessarily the only civilization peak that has happened. In fact, we've got stories of past civilizations, Lemuria, Mur, Atlantis. There's others too. I mean, so we just have to keep in mind that we may be doing peaks and troughs, dark ages, bright, dark ages, golden age, dark age, golden age. And I honestly think we may be very well heading towards another golden age. So we're not necessarily going to be accelerating towards a dark age like many would think, and that's how we were going prior to POTUS winning. But I think we're going to continue on an upward trend towards a higher peak than we've achieved in a long time. So that's kind of what this is all about. I mean, for me, it's about finding out what the real past is. Okay. So I have a bunch of different disciplines that I'm interested in. Astronomy, plate tectonics, volcanology, earthquakes, obviously ancient history, cars, music, I mean, I kind of go all over. I'm weird that way, but when you have that kind of a broad spectrum, you can see pieces over here that may not necessarily connect over here to other people, but you put it together because you've got the connection and the knowledge base in the background to put it together. And that's kind of what happened for me on this thread. Is that I took bits and pieces from a bunch of different places and went, aha. So anyway, well, one determines the real past based on true evidence, Enzo. And admittedly, and like I said at the top, which some of you may have missed, but this is speculation. I can't point at a piece of evidence in my hand and say, there it is, there's the proof. All I can do is I can lay out the string of coincidences and the circumstantial evidence that makes you go, well, okay, that seems pretty reasonable. I mean, I'm not saying it's for sure. I'm willing to be proven wrong, but I'm also willing to be proven right. So, but until we start asking the questions and going down these paths, who's gonna force the issue? Who's gonna go there? Well, not many people. So, these are the things that we've got to do, and this is our job. And again, I'm not trying to pass this off as honest as truth. I'm not trying to pass this off as anything more than the pieces I put together and I came up with as a conclusion on my own, as speculation and theory, not as truth. Okay. Now I want to be clear about that before we go here. So let me, with that said, start us off here. Let me screen share this so everybody can see it. Okay, and sorry that kind of big screen, so you can see how it brightens up the world. My apologies. It kind of washes my face out. We only do cursive here, Tammy. We don't do none of this newfangled crap. Anyway, so is everybody ready to follow me down the rabbit hole again? Semi-speculation again, with some facts and anecdotal evidence to back it up. It'll take me a bit longer to build this one as I'm doing it on the fly, but here it goes. Little St. James Island, why is it so important? So what we have is this one. I got 40 Head to reinstate this thread. He actually lost it when he got booted, and then he came back, and I begged him to put this thread back up because this is such a good thread. We're going to kind of skim through it to a degree because it is important, and it also touches on a lot of stuff, a lot of other things that I've covered, so we'll go through the full thing here and take a look at it. So we know that the visible temple, on Little St. James Island, was modeled after the architecture of baths in Syria. 40 Head did a good thread on it that shows everything. Come back to me when done reading. There's more. So we're going to head to the 40 Head thread. Oh my God, the descendants of, or they are mimicking the Amorites, aka the Canaanites. So the most wicked people to ever walk the face of the earth, worshippers of Moloch and Baal. Dear God, this battle's for the human race. Epstein's temple ties it all together. Now, I'm going to also throw out here that Amorites, Canaanites, Babylonians, Nimrod. It starts with Nimrod and goes to Babylon, and then goes to the Canaanites and the Phoenicians, which I'm sure you've heard Sarah Ashcraft talk about. And then it goes to Minoans and Tenosis. It also goes to Khazaria, and which, if you're watching the sequel to the Fall of the Cabal, you'll be finding out about that. I highly recommend that. There's some really important stuff that she's talking about in those videos that are coming out that you've got to know. So it goes to Khazaria, which then goes to the fake Jews, the Talmudic Jews, because the Talmud is basically just Babylonian magic, dark magic, the Kabbalah. It's not. The Torah is the Pentateuch, the Old Testament. The Talmud is garbage. It's what they created when, if you go and read about the history of Khazaria and what happened, they were forced to pick between the three religions, Judaism, Muslim, and Christianity. And they picked Judaism, and then they created their own version of it. And they created their own book called the Talmud. And they put all of their Babylonian dark magic, money magic, and crap in the Talmud. And now it's become accepted as one of the standard Jewish teachings, but it's not. It is specifically for the Khazarians and the dark side. We want to get into that tonight. But it ties in with what we're seeing here. It's all part of that same big picture that we're talking about. It all ties together. It's all interlaced. So with that said, let's continue on. Okay, now recently a photo was produced that shows a bathhouse in Aleppo, Syria that looked very similar to the temple on Epstein's Little St. James Island. Q showed us the discovery in drop 3346. I looked up that bathhouse in Syria. The color pattern continues inside. So here we have this. Now, I mean, the similarity between this and the temple on Little St. James Island is unmistakable. I mean, you can't look at that and go, oh, no, there's no point. There's no similarity there at all. Now, you're a fool if you think that. Sorry, that's dead ringer. I mean, from the stripes, although I'm not sure what the original colors of these are. They look kind of black here. But the striping and even the shape of the way the stripes go up, the keystone, the golden dome on top, it's there. Okay. But Epstein's temple matches more than just that bathhouse. In fact, it's quite a large In fact, quite a large amount of architecture in Aleppo, Syria, has similar color patterns. Now, keep in mind, remember Aleppo, Syria. That's going to become somewhat coincidentally important a little bit later for another reason on another thought process I have that's kind of a tangent to this, but we'll touch on it. Similar color patterns, archways, and golden domes. You can see here Aleppo has these patterns in many of its structures. And you can. I mean, it's all over the place there. Now, to help maybe show stuff here. Where'd it go? There it is up there. I move stuff around, so it's going to take me a minute I have to clean up my desktop. Now, just so you guys are aware, and I'm going to show this. I should have had this loaded because I knew I was going to need it. My apologies. Yes, Muncie, you saw the one I did with quiet voice on this, so you're kind of ahead of the curve on some of this over some people. So Aleppo, Syria is right there. Okay, now look at where we're at. We've got Jerusalem, Beirut, Lebanon, Turkey, blah 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 blah. This up here is Khazaria. This up here was Tartaria. Give me a minute here. There, I've got Aleppo marked. Did I put any of the other stuff there? No, I got to go find my other. Bear with me, you guys will see a bunch of stuff here. Here we are, Khazaria. So let me just lay in Khazaria here as an overlay. So you can see Khazaria was up over here. Phoenicia is down here, and you can see Phoenicia is right. All the pink was the extent of the Phoenician Empire. You can see that just overlays Aleppo perfectly here. Sorry, not trying to brag with the car. It's just I've always had one of my cars as my backdrop. And then if we go to Canaanite, again, we can see here, we got the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Akkadians. Aleppo's right in the middle of it. Anatolia, which was an ancient name for Turkey. So, I mean, we've got all these right here. And we've got, I believe we've got Hittites too. That one doesn't show up quite as well here. Hang on, let me bring that a little darker so it's more visible. Okay. So the Hittite Empire, and Hittites were another bad group. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on in this area. And Aleppo's right in the middle of it. Okay. So Aleppo, I don't want to say it's the heart of evil, but Aleppo is definitely someplace that we need to keep our eye on when we move forward, because there's going to be a lot of information from Aleppo and the fact of where it is. It's more important than I think we're giving it credit for. Okay, anyway. What's interesting is nowhere else in the world seems to have this much of these strange colors and patterns. Aleppo is one of the oldest cities in the world. Their history is traced back to the BC. The article says nearly 2,000 years before Christ. So basically 4,000 years old. Okay. Aleppo, Syria was home to the Amorites, according to Jewish Encyclopedia of 1906. Sons of the fourth son of Canaan. We ought probably to follow the Septuagint, reading the forsaken places of the Amorites and the Hivites. And again, Hivites is another name for Phoenicians, Amorites, Canaanites. It's just another name. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with the bee symbology that you'll see. I believe it could be. I haven't tracked that down yet. Generally in post-biblical literature, the Canaanites are usually spoken of as the Amorites, so one and the same. When God led the children of Israel out of Egypt and into the land of Canaan, he told the Jews to wipe out the Canaanites because they were wicked. Now, keep in mind, these guys were all worshipers of Baal and Moloch. Well, we know what Moloch and Baal and Moloch are one and the same. I mean, for the argument's sake, they're the same deity. We all know what the worship of Moloch is, child sacrifice, bloodletting, torture, basically just nasty. We call it Luciferianism today, but it's Moloch. And yes, Tartaria is a big one as well. A lot of old world stuff that, and I do believe that ISIS was being tasked with destroying certain things to keep more history away from us. There was things that they did not in that area that they did not want us getting our hands on, that told stories that would have helped open up history. We're now going to have to rely on whatever we pull out of the Vatican archives and things like that, which are going to be vast. I mean, that's where most of the answers are. The Canaanites were descendants of Canaan, obviously son of Ham, son of Noah. The city of Aleppo appears to have been founded by the most wicked and evil, violent, and terrible people this world has ever known. The apocryphal writers of the 1st and 2nd pre-Christian century, they are the main representatives of heathen superstition, loathed as idolaters, in whose ordinances Israelites may not walk. According to the book of Jubilees, the former terrible giants, the Rephaim, gave way to the Amorites. So, former terrible giants, the Rephaim, Rephaim, interesting. Sorry, just thinking out loud. You got booted too, Terry? Jeez. Hey, Morgan, welcome from Trinidad. Wow. Well, appreciate that. Anyway. So basically, gave way to the Amorites, an evil and sinful people whose wickedness surpasses that of any other, and whose life will be cut short on earth. In the Syriac apocalypse of Baruch, they're symbolized by black water on account of their black art, their witchcraft, and impure mysteries. Right there, the Rephaim, otherwise known in Hebrew as the Nephilim, all right, he gets it, gave way to the Amorites. So the evil we're fighting is patterning after and worshiping the same demons and evil that caused God to send a flood to this earth to destroy all but 8 people. No, we're not going to redheaded giant thing. Not even sure what that is. The Amorites were an ancient people group frequently listed among the enemies of Israel in the writings of the Old Testament. Genesis 10:15 through 16 first mentions the Amorites, referring to them as descendants of Canaan, son of Ham, the son of Noah. Genesis 10:6. And yes, there is another thing I have that definitely calls out that these Luciferians believe they are descended through Ham and Canaan, or Cain. Canaan, one and the same. Okay. Canaan. Nimrod, Canaan, kind of got to go that way. For only Og, king of... Oh, I hate it when it does that. Hang on. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Indeed, his bedstead was an iron bedstead. Is it not in Rabbah of the people of Ammon? 9 cubits is its length, and 4 cubits is its width, according to the standard cubit. Cubits, what? 2 to 3 feet? So, I mean, that's a pretty big bed. I mean, even at 2 foot, that's, 18 foot long. And if you go 3 foot, that's, can't do my math, 27 foot long. So, I mean, that's a pretty big bed. Oh, excuse me, 18 to 20 inches. So, means King Og's bed was 13.5 foot long and 6 feet wide. California King is 84 inches long, which is 7 feet. Yes, 7 feet by 6 feet. So that gives you an idea. Canaanite gods demanded human sacrifice, and more specifically the sacrifice of children. something that God, had not commanded or spoken of, and they have never even come into my heart. And basically, this is just repeating what we know about Baal and Moloch worshippers. According to the Bible, centers of worship for Canaanite gods such as Moloch and Baal were set up in Judah and Israel by apostate kings. Child sacrifice was even practiced in the Valley of Hinnom, just outside of Jerusalem. The Bible has told us for over 3,000 years the Canaanites, Amorites are evil, Satan-worshipping people who sacrifice their children to Moloch and Baal. You need to read this article. I simply can't quote enough of it to show you the full picture. This is probably not a bad article to go read if you get a chance. So there's a claim that the Aryan people originated in Canaan, which is not true. They actually originated in Tartaria, but that's a topic for another day. What we see today is a genetic profile radicalized and weaponized by the Third Reich were Amorites. You can research this if you desire. Just know you're going to run into a ton of racist idiocy and lies. And that's true. Anytime that the term Aryan comes up, you're going to get a bunch of bullshit. It is very hard to separate the wheat from the chaff. One of the books I recommended, the one that has the super offensive title to Christians, this one, is one of the best I've ever found at tracing the history of the Aryans. And it traces the history of the Aryans and the Dravidians. The Dravidians are basically the original inhabitants of India, and the Aryans were invaders that came in from the north of India and drove the Dravidians out. And then everybody migrated west, which is kind of backwards from what is generally taught. The Indus Valley is we could even potentially be looking at a change in where we believe the biblical Eden was, because the Indus Valley also fits the description of Eden. It's pretty amazing. And apparently there's a lot of evidence, and I haven't chased it all down. I've chased some of it down, and it's there, but I haven't chased it all, that indicates that many of the happenings that we attribute to Mesopotamia and such could have happened further east initially. So we may be looking at some revising of what we think we know there. And it's entirely possible, because we know that what we know is potentially flawed. So got to keep an open mind. Not so open your mind falls out. I mean, but as long as it fits the rules and what we know, then it's got to remain a possibility until it's eliminated. So anyway, do you see the connection here? God told the Jews to destroy the Canaanites. There's a long-standing hatred routed much deeper than racism. The hatred is spiritual. Demons and angels fighting a very real spiritual battle that bled into the minds of humans from time to time. I can't tell people how excellent this thread is by 40. This thing pretty much knocks it out of the park. And he wrote this well over a year ago. So 40 Head was on top of this a long time ago. But perhaps this is why Hitler killed over 6 million Jews. Partially. The thing that people don't realize is that Hitler was also a Jew, but not a real Jew. He was a Khazar Jew. So he was killing the real Jews so that they could get themselves put into Israel as part of the Balfour Declaration, which Rothschild, who was also a Khazarian Jew, pulled out of England at the end of World War I. It's a mess. There's a ton of history. There's a ton of stuff. It's all there, but you're going to spend years trying to figure it out. Perhaps this is why I'd like to see what's happening. What is the true enemy of Judaism and Christianity? Demon worship, followers of Moloch, and child sacrifice. Now you know that the Bible is true, that God is real. Well, nobody doubted God for a minute. And I think much of the Bible is true. I do think that it has been trimmed and modified and in some cases rewritten for the benefit of those doing the writing. I know everybody says, oh, well, God wouldn't let that happen. Well, why? Why wouldn't he let that happen? I mean, kids die from cancer. That's a horrible thing too, but God allows it to happen. There's a reason why everything happens the way it does. And I don't think God is going to be too concerned with people coming through and modifying his word. It's up to us to discern and figure it out and discern right from wrong. And we're getting there. Much more so now than at any point in history, we're getting there. The cabal is following that terrible evil line while the rest of us buck against their vile wickedness. The battle rages. There we go. This realization makes truths come into focus. The ruling families of the world, the Saudis, which are a Hashemite kingdom, hailing from the Levant, which includes Syria, the Rothschilds, holding demonic and Satan-worshipping festivals honoring Moloch, Soros, the Hitler Youth. Follow the why. And Epstein, the man who made all of this power a special place to go and practice their witchcraft, their idolatry, their pagan sexual abuse, and sacrifices of children. Pray like you have never prayed before. Gird yourself in the things of God. Put on the armor of God, which I have found to be very necessary in truth. This is a great statement. Folks, if there was ever a doubt, ever a fear that what QAnon stands for, you should be clear of that right now. The Great Awakening worldwide. Thank you, everybody. What happened is these truths are spread far and wide. It makes where we go one, we go all a little more powerful, doesn't it? I've been saying for quite a while that where we go one, we go all has just phenomenal depth of meaning. It's huge. I had a Anon kind of get on me the other day about that. Well, that just sounds like something a sheep would say. I respect people's opinions, but if you're considering yourself an Anon and you look at that phrase and you think that it has anything sheepish about it, you're not an Anon. You don't understand what this is all about. Yes, I highly recommend that you follow 40 Head if you do not. In fact, I don't even know if I had him on my shout out list. I got so many people I need to add to that list. Hey, Storm, good to have you here. Thank you for coming in. Let's see here. So that's pretty much it. There's a lot of stuff. Now, somebody else said something down here that's important too. And if you give me a minute, I can dig and I can find it. But have you ever noticed the set on Ellen's show? The background wall is Epstein's temple. And it is. If you think back on it, it's definitely the stripes. So I'm glad you're here, Storm. Thank you. Okay, so back to my thread at some point. Should have had that open in a separate window. I'm a rookie. Okay. So we just saw those pictures of the temples in Aleppo. And here we have Epstein's temple. You can see the architecture and the shape. Okay. And symbology is huge to these guys. I was just doing some sorting of stuff yesterday. Digs. Yeah, welcome to my stuff. When did I throw it in Epstein? Some of the stuff you're going to see here, pardon me, there's some of the Epstein death photos in this folder, so avert your eyes if you're sensitive to that kind of thing. This is just a bunch of my stuff that I've gotten put together over the years, and I've just been sorting it. I'm looking for a couple things specifically here. And yes, there's duplications. Sorry. So it's not there. Where did I put it? I didn't stick it in there, did I? No, I didn't. Running Trump. All right, so it's not in there. Nope, I don't have it there. I have it there. No, I don't. So, okay. I must not have gotten it to sort yet. But anyway, so there's a picture of yeah, there's GOG on there. Storm. My version of it. See, I think GOG was Epstein or was Bourdain. I know a lot of people think it was somebody else, but I'm convinced it was Bourdain. I matched the year. But that's just me. Anyway. So, yeah, well, I'm not that organized. Believe me, there's a ton of stuff. So anyway, the backdrop on Ellen's stage is very much this. I also have a picture of Biden with one of his granddaughters. I think it was the one that's always with him now, but it was probably 10 years ago when she was 7 or 8, and she's dressed in a blue and white striped dress, and it was at the funeral of Bo, and she's dressed in this blue and white stripe, and this is pretty significant. And especially if you go back and you look at that one picture of Biden, the black and white picture of him and that really young girl when he was younger, she's in a dark and light colored striped dress too. So guys, this like Enzo just said, there's too much to keep up with. There is so much going on, and this spreads so far and so vastly that it's incredible. I have, and the reason I was sorting yesterday is I still have over 4,900 different picture files that I have to find a home for to sort and organize. That's how much stuff I've collected, but I haven't organized. And whenever I try to find stuff, I know I have the stuff. I can never find it. Everybody was talking about ETS, I the Spy yesterday, and I've got a picture of I the Spy. I know who he is. I mean, that was doped out 2 years ago, and I've got the info. But couldn't find it. So yeah, that's right, PM. I got to dig on my own hard drive for an hour to find things at times. I'm about ready to nuke all my memes and just go with the facts. But anyway. As Forty had alluded to, these folks adhere to an ancient evil belief system. Started all the way back with Cain and continues to this day. You can call it satanic worship, Moloch worship, whatever you want. Bottom line, it is the most evil and vile belief structure. Now, if you have not seen my video, I haven't done that on my own. That was part of my quiet voice stuff. Well, I've got a thread on Swindoll's son, Charles Swindoll Jr., did a really good video on Luciferianism, and then I did a thread expanding it even further. That would be a good place to go from here to expand your knowledge base there. I will probably do that video soon because that's another very important one and is going to be necessary for people to understand in the upcoming days. Anyway, let's see. I'm trying to keep up with what you guys are typing too. Yes, Tammy, you know exactly the picture I'm looking at, and it's just ghastly. I mean, if anybody's got a heart, they see that, they just pull their hair out. Thank you, Storm. I appreciate that. I know how that's high praise coming from you. Anyway, so here's where we start getting off into the little bit different stuff. Now there was speculation that there very well maybe have been something way deep underground of power and or importance at Epstein Island. Not the sacrificial stuff, not the genetic stuff, not the rape stuff, something darker, something more sinister. And honestly, this came off the Chans long ago. This and the thing is this came out right as the whole thing about Epstein Island came out. Nobody knows who did this. This was off the Chans. It could have been dropped by somebody. Okay. But as we got to know more about what was there at Epstein Island, the truer this has become. Okay. We've established that there's occult meeting areas. We've established there's pedo rape dungeons. We've established that there was a submarine bay. We've established that there were black projects even further down. Okay. The black projects were some of the lowest level stuff in the dungeons. And we've established this since then. Okay. So this illustration predates our knowledge of this stuff. And it's accurate so far. Okay. And it says, no, Earth is flat. Just kidding, retard. That's very important because that's true. Sorry. I'm going to take pokes at flat earthers. Just going to do it. Now, we don't know about the tram tunnel, tram network hub storage facility. There could be an underground tram network amongst the islands. But we don't know that. It would make sense, but they've got their submarine bases. Water Island, which was the Bidens, was an old submarine base. We know Epstein Island has one. I know that Branson's Necker Island has one, and his is just in that area too. He also there's other islands in that area too that are owned by very suspicious people. You need to, again, I have another dig on islands and who owns them, and that's a really, 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 really good dig. I've mapped out all the islands across the world that I've been able to find that are owned by billionaires, millionaires, society people, things like that. And it's a very, very, very interesting grouping, and the Caribbean is just full of it. There's probably 40 or 50 of them down there at a minimum. So, and every island, I've got an Excel file that lists island, who owns it, where it is, whether it's inhabited, if it's got an airport, helicopter, can take a submarine, all of it. Hey, Muncie, quit stirring up crap. Boomers are fine. So anyway, we'll get to the bottom here. It shows we've got this ancient evil object of worship, which many have speculated on. And we'll get it figured out here, and you'll see where this is going. Fantastical, right? Maybe not. Let's delve into this just a bit and see what we come up with. And I agree, Moritz. I don't think the tram's likely down there. There's too much tectonic activity in that area to be realistic. For decades, there was a zone known as the Bermuda Triangle. The area is still there, but there have been no real disappearances attributed to it for quite a few years. In fact, we think we can almost pinpoint when they stopped. Okay. Now, Epstein purchased Little St. James in 1998. Now, why does that matter? Let's look at Little St. James in relation to the Bermuda Triangle. San Juan, Puerto Rico is accepted as the southernmost corner of the triangle. Suspiciously close to Little St. James Island. Now, Puerto Rico is considered, if you look at the maps, the Puerto Rico area is considered to be the corner of the Bermuda Triangle. That doesn't mean that it's not in this whole area somewhere, okay? People just assume Puerto Rico, all right? The thinner lines on the map, these little thin ones here, are laying lines overlaid. They may show some interesting things as we move along. What I can do is I can bring up the Google Earth, and we can actually get there. And Little St. James. Click on the Bermuda Triangle. Okay. So as you can see, well, I didn't do a really good job there. Little St. James is right there. Puerto Rico's right here. I mean, if we were to measure miles, we're not talking a whole long distance here. It's probably less than 100 miles from there to there, 86 miles. So, I mean, we're not talking a huge distance here. So it's just something to be aware of. Now, the other thing people don't realize is Necker Island is right up here. That's only 29 miles from Epstein Island. So that's Branson up here. And Branson's another definite bad boy. So, okay, we've got the Bermuda Triangle. You got Bermuda, the other corners up on Florida somewhere, and then this triangle area. So this is our triangle, okay? Triangle of power. And I'm going to pop up the ley line grid so you guys can see it. Anyway. A big node right there. And I think that node is probably the actual corner of this right here. This corner node to me tells, combined with a potential power source. Bermuda's supposed to have something. I haven't found out what it is yet, but anyway, we'll get into that. So the thinner lines on the map are the ley lines, which, as you can see here, that's all this stuff out here. They can get a bit overwhelming, so I'll leave them off for now because they do tend to confuse the eyeball. Welcome, Annie. Thank you for the subscription. Welcome, everybody that's just popped in. Oh, we're up to 77 people now. Good. Starting to get some people in here finally. So, backing out in the view, sorry, we can see the entirety of the triangle, west corner at Miami, north corner at Bermuda. See that huge ley line convergence just to Nassau? Keep with me here. Now, I moved for, this is an older grouping I did. I had redone it. I moved the corner up here a little bit. But the same rule, you know, same thing applies. This easily could be a corner. We could easily adjust this to have the triangle, instead of being from here to here, have one corner here, one corner here. It would just shift things slightly, and it would still fall within the realm of possibility for the usage of the triangle idea. It doesn't have to be a perfect triangle. Nobody ever said it did. I think people just draw it that way because they want to be, it's more pleasing to the eye. Symmetrical is always more pleasing than asymmetrical. Now, looking at that, especially with the ley lines overlaid, it's not so hard to believe that there could very well be something to the whole vortex of power thing attributed to the Bermuda Triangle. Okay. Now, here's where we're going to go back in time. All right. About 10 to 12,000 years ago, we had a comet that fragmented and hit along the eastern seaboard, including directly in the Gulf of Mexico. Okay. Now, this is known as the Younger Dryas impact, YD being Younger Dryas. The Dryas is an age, and younger meaning older or younger. Paleontologist stuff. This comet fragmented, so there are multiple impact spots, some that have yet to be discovered, I'm sure. So instead of showing you on a flat map, because we have the technology, we're going to show you this on another map. But I'm probably going to have to go fix this because some dumb person moved the folder on their desktop, and I got to go find it again. So give me just a second here. Desktop. I think it's a mapping. Got to find the right one. Yep, that's it. Woohoo! Oh. I'm jumping all over the planet here. Okay. Now, the thing I want everybody to be aware of is that this whole thing here, now you can see that it's not a perfect overlay. There's some distraction, but it's pretty damn close, okay? Now, the first thing I want to point out is, remember we were talking about Aleppo earlier and how important it was? Look what's smack dab in the middle of Aleppo. One of the impacts, okay? It's going to become important later, and there's a reason for this, okay? Now, this whole area here is a potential impact field of this comet that fragmented, okay? And all these circles are places that they've found potential impact spots, impact craters. Now, obviously, if they're out in the middle of the water, they're not going to find anything because it's going to hit the water and splash, okay? Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that as the Earth rotates as a ball, the impact started here, and the Earth, think of a string of stuff in space, a comet that had fragmented, okay? It stretched out like I don't know, what's the best way to describe it? Those little old chain things that use the little clips to hold, like you would use for like turning a fan on, like on my ceiling fan, and it's got the little chain with the balls, and you can use clips to put them together. Think of one of those that's strung out, okay? And as each hit happens, as each ball hits, as something, if it's coming down straight like this, and you got a ball rotating and it hits like this, it's going to come in a stream and hit in a length as the planet rotates, okay? And that's what we're seeing here, is we're seeing that potential impact. We're also seeing the margin of error as, the angularity, because we're not sure the angularity. But the bottom line is that this whole area down here is within the realm of the impact, okay? So this impact area is really, really critical. So we need to keep this in mind. This is part of where we're going. This is important to the picture. Yes, Elisa, that's all. We know a lot about that. Actually, they have a stop at Epstein Island so the children can swim with the fish. Make that as you will. Okay. So we've got the Bermuda Triangle, and we've got this whole huge impact field here. Okay. And this is a slightly different version of it. I had found this new one since I've done the thread, obviously. I'm always updating stuff. With that in mind, remembering that there are likely impact zones that have yet to be discovered, what is this area right here? Then we'll go back to the Google Earth, and I'll turn this off, and we'll zoom into that. Okay. Now, someone commented on the fault lines earlier. Okay. Well, let's bring in the fault lines so that people can see where the faults in this area are. Okay. Now, if you look at this, you'll see that this is a big, weird fracture. It doesn't really fit with anything. It's like something pushed down right here. Okay. I like in the thread, I say the same thing. If you had a piece of rice paper and you stuck your thumb on it and you push through, it's kind of what this shape looks like. Now imagine, say, we'll take this overlay off. I mean, you got the idea of where it lays. This ring of islands indicates pretty much the far end of it, but this whole thing here. Okay. And this isn't necessarily 100% accurate either. This is the estimation. Okay. I mean, toggle this on and off a couple times and let your eyeballs see. Okay. This sure looks like this is some sort of an impact area here. Okay. Now, do I think this was caused by the Younger Dryas? No. I don't think this particular one was caused by the Younger Dryas. I think the Younger Dryas came from a different angle. The Younger Dryas came from east to west. They were coming out here and moved this way. This is very apparently coming in from this way. It hit, scooped, and pushed. You can see the push out this way. You can also see a pretty straight line up there, but this is the one that concerns me because you can see how it almost looks like a scoop went, so there's this. Okay. So let's go back to the thread real fast. Okay. So we're going to take another side trip here. Actually, yeah, we'll just go with it. Now, I'll go in the correct order here because the way I laid it out in the thread is a little more confusing. Now, later on in the thread, I talk about the, I can't even say this, the Chicxulub crater impact. Now, this is where, at 65 million years ago, supposedly the impact that killed the dinosaurs happened. Okay. I'm not sure I buy that this is the impact point from where that happened, because if there was a big enough crater, I mean, let's just zoom in here. I mean, we're looking at Google Earth. I've got it centered where it's supposed to be. I went to a lot of effort to do that. There is no visible crater here at all whatsoever. I mean, on, off, on, off. There's nothing there that matches and shows you any size of a crater. Enzo, I think we can 99% of the time, especially when we're dealing with this kind of stuff. Because there's other sources too. We can go here, and I will bring this over. And this is another map system. And I use this as a backup for when I want to see things. And we can zoom in right here and look and see that there is no crater evidence whatsoever there. Now, this nice thing about this one is that we can exaggerate the vertical plane dramatically so we can see huge vertical changes. And there's no vertical changes in this area at all. It's a flat peninsula. Okay. So that, I'm not buying that whole crater thing that they're showing us there is what they're saying. Now, look at this same area here. Does this not look like it's a potential for a spot where a crater a meteor or something, an asteroid. Now, keep in mind, asteroids aren't necessarily balls. They can be long, thin rocks. Okay, they don't have to be round. In fact, most likely they're not. They're usually not spheroid at all. They're usually oblong and flat on one side. Okay, so what if this hit flat and hit and scooped, okay, along this way? Now, I exaggerated the height there just so you could get an idea of how, of the potential there, okay? So I've got two different maps that kind of show the same thing, all right? I haven't shown anybody this map before. You guys, this is the first time I've used this for showing anybody outside of my own use. So I do like to double check stuff on Google Earth. This is one of the ways that I do it, especially the underwater stuff, because this one is probably better than Google Earth for underwater. Okay. So again, I don't necessarily buy the whole where this impact happened. I'm thinking the real impact was down here. This will be the big, this is big enough that it would have caused a big problem. I mean, and it left a scar on the planet. I mean, if we're talking about an impact big enough to leave a scar on the planet for that long, you know, and it was enough to wipe out the dinosaurs because of it was enough to put enough stuff in the atmosphere to create darkness and change the planet's temperature for, you know, 200 years, then it's going to be a pretty big impact. It's not going to be just a little impactor that's, you know, a couple hundred miles across. It's going to be huge. So, I mean, I don't know. This is effectively the same size, but, you know, I don't know. This one just hasn't sat well with me ever since I found out that, and multiple sources claim that that's the spot. It's not just a single source. I just happened to pick this one map because it was the cleanest one to use. But when you start digging on it and digging on it more, it just doesn't add up because there's not any impact or evidence that I see there. And there would be evidence left in the water, left in the earth that you would see that, you know, 65 million years wouldn't have erased. Like this down here, you'd see something like that, especially when you have the oddball fault line that just sticks out here for no good reason. I mean, you've got a plate ridge right here. You've got, you know, a mid-Atlantic ridge here, and this is all solid plate up here, and this is all solid plate down here. What would have caused this? Well, something caused it. Okay. So it's not just an arbitrary thing. It was an external influence, I believe, that nailed the crust. So anyway, kind of getting off to the side there a little bit. So in the thread, I cover that later, but I thought it was important to get to it now. Okay. So follow what I'm putting down here. Let's go for another quick side trip. This should be the last one before everything gets put together. Plato, the man who was a philosopher and a historian, gave us perhaps one of the most enduring tales that fires the imagination that has lasted through the ages to this day. Atlantis. Okay. I don't really need to describe it, but as we all know, it was powerful, inhabited by peoples and beings who were very knowledgeable and could also do miraculous things with technology. Here is an ancient map showing where Atlantis was thought to be. The map is flipped as north is down in this, so America is on the right. So because the map is rotated 180, America's over here. You got the Mediterranean, mouth of the Mediterranean here, and you've got Atlantis here. Okay. So let's go to Google Earth because I've done more work than I did on the thread there. Just for shits and giggles, because I could, I overlaid that map of Kirchner's on the globe. Now, obviously, it's an approximation. So, you know, the opening to the Straits of Gibraltar are going to be off slightly, and then America I put off here. You've got these two islands here that just don't make any sense. Okay. So, I mean, that's a pretty massive landmass. I mean, that's huge. Okay. If a landmass of that size were to have gone somewhere, there'd be evidence of it. I mean, I'm sorry. We turn this off. I mean, yeah, there's something here, but you know, and we can prove pretty quickly that this is a mid-Atlantic ridge spread island building. You know, it's because it's exactly the same as Iceland up here. I mean, you look at how coming up to Iceland, you can see it looks like layers and layers and layers of lava. Okay, and you see the same thing down here. You see the layers and layers and layers all around. Okay, so this is from a mid-Atlantic ridge building. It's not from a continent that's sunk. Okay, continent that's sunk would you don't have it here. You just don't. Okay, I mean, I don't care how you slice it, you're not going to see it there. All right. And plus, I mean, it would have gone from here to over here somewhere, and there's just not enough evidence of that in here. I mean, you see the same textures, the same everything there. And we can go to the other map too. We can look at it here and see the same thing. I mean, it's not any different. I mean, you've got the Azores and you got the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. You can see where it's building. We can come up here to Iceland and see the same details, the same info. And you can see the same patterning throughout the whole Mid-Atlantic Ridge. I mean, it doesn't really change. Okay, so I'm pretty convinced that, you know, the direction I'm going is correct on this one. So we have to accept that the possibility that this picture of Atlantis is not accurate. Okay. Now, again, I had flipped that over so that Africa was on the correct side. So it looks to be a pretty big area, no? Also looks like there's plenty of outlying islands that were considered part of Atlantis as well. I said this wrong, and thanks to Twitter, you can't go back and correct it. We know that you had to go west out of the Straits of Gibraltar to get to Atlantis. So again, let's go back to Google Earth. Okay, let's get this. Let's get north straight up so we can see. Okay, so going straight out of the east Straits of Gibraltar. Let me throw that Kirchner Atlantis up. Okay, I mean, that's in the right spot. I mean, that's directly west of Atlantis, or Straits of Gibraltar. Sorry. And I appreciate that, Enzo. I am just very well self-taught and probably smarter than I should be. But we'll just leave it at that. But as you can see, again, there's no way that this could have existed out there. There's just no way. Geologically, it's impossible. I mean, you just can't get there from here, okay? Now, we know that you go, and as per Plato's description, we know that it was a seven-sided land. Again, from description. So let's look for something that might fit that bill. Well, right here. And actually, this one doesn't, this picture is not, not a good picture of it. I've got better. So let's head back over here. I could probably do the rest of the thread without the thread, but I'll just bounce back and forth so that everybody keeps aware of. Now, let me trace Atlantis for you. Boom. Okay. That's where I think Atlantis is. Now, I want you to keep an eye on this. Straits of Gibraltar, heading straight east. Pretty close as far as I'm concerned. maybe not straight east, but close enough in my book. Okay, so let's zoom into this a little bit. Okay. Seawart seamounts. And I see that they've removed the other name. You see this name here? Great Meteor Table Mount. We go back to Google Earth. It's not there anymore. We go to the ESRI Map Gallery. What do they call it? Great Meteor Table Mount. Okay. Why would they call this particular island the Great Meteor Table Mount? Seems kind of strange to me. Back to my Google Earth Pro. Okay. The other thing that you find interesting is that it appears that we've got some semi-pyramidal shapes over here. This one here is exceptionally interesting because it looks like a truncated pyramid. You see the line, the line, the line, the line. Admittedly, the detail is pretty rough. And when I measured this was like 11 kilometers across one side. So if that was a pyramid, it would be colossal. The ESRI Gallery, oops, if I go vertical exaggeration way up, and we pull to the side just a little bit, you can see that it's a pretty symmetrical shape, though. I mean, so it's potential that it could be a couple pyramids over there. But, you know, again, the more you exaggerate, the more it's going to look like a pyramid. We take the exaggeration down, you can... I like that this has got the 3D. So, if there's continental shift as a rotation as well, meaning, well, yes, absolutely. If you study the plate tectonic movements, you'll see that they don't move in straight lines. They're doing this. There's some pretty funky motions in some of the plates. In fact, some of them, I'm not sure how they come up with the directions that they're going, because one side appears to be going one way and the other side appears to be going the other way, and there's no split in the middle. So how do you do that unless it's doing a rotation, which, like you're suggesting? So you're basically, the way I look at it is that if you were to take and float cork on a bowl of water, and if you were to have a bowl of water that was able to be a ball, and you were able to have cork all over it, and it stay in place without falling to the ground due to gravity, you'd have all this cork that bobs and moves and does this. And I think if you were to spin the center of that ball, you would start seeing some plate type motion out of the cork. So I think that that's important. Meteor table. If you go to Wikipedia and look it up, you'll notice that they claim that it was named after the ship. Boy, it's amazing how often things get named after ships. I don't buy that necessarily. Why would we be thinking Atlantis is in the wrong spot? If it's only 12,000 years ago, geologically, that's nothing. It wouldn't have moved more than a couple miles from where it is. You know, you got millions of years is what it takes to move. You know, I'm talking 12,000 years ago. Yeah, maybe further north, but not that much. Again, it's the difference there is minimal. I mean, that difference off from the straight east is, he doesn't say straight east, he says, or excuse me, west. I keep saying east. East puts it further in the Mediterranean. He says west. He doesn't say straight west. So I use the word straight, and I probably shouldn't have. West, where I have it, still falls within the west context. It's not west, southwest, or southwest. So anyway, we'll go back to Google Earth here. Okay, so again, direction west of the Straits of Gibraltar. Then we have Seven-sided. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Woohoo! There we are. Okay. And if you look up north a little ways, there's nothing much here. You've got this one here that's a little strange. You've got the Azores up here. And believe it or not, the Azores is where some people think Atlantis was. So we're not thinking that it's anything more than that. And yeah, it very well could be a volcano. Because remember, when we have Kirchner's picture right here, well, let me get rid of that. Let me do it this way. Kirchner's picture, what's it show right in the center of the islands here? A couple volcanoes. You mean the South Pole diary, Enzo? Not sure it applies. And yes, I'm very familiar with it. If there's one thing I'm really familiar with, it's Antarctica, as many of the people in the chat will relay if you haven't been following me for very long. Anyway, so again, we have Straits of Gibraltar, Atlantis. All right, so what does it have to do with Epstein Island? This is where we start to get into a little bit of thought-provoking stuff here. Okay. If we take a look at the relationship between Atlantis and Little St. James, Atlantis appears to be about halfway between them, closer to Gibraltar, but for a highly advanced society like the Atlanteans, that should pose no problems at all. Yeah, I know about Etna spouting storm. If you've ever looked at the history of Etna, you'll realize that it erupts more than it doesn't. It's one of the most active volcanoes in the world. It's no, you're okay, Enzo. Atlantis or Antarctica is one of those things that I'm very, 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 very well versed in, and the bird diaries do not necessarily lead us to anything that goes to Atlantis. The bird diaries, if anything, take us further into Antarctica. I do not believe Atlantis is Antarctica, although I have been told that that's a possibility. I haven't seen enough evidence to back it up. I'm going off of what we have documented in history, what we can see with our eyes, what we can see geographically and geologically. So failing that until I have some other proofs like artifacts or such, then I'll continue down this path. It's entirely possible that there are huge amounts of things underneath Antarctica that we don't know about. In fact, I'm positive there are, but it's ridiculous and useless to speculate on what they are because we literally have no idea what's there other than complete and total anecdotal and speculative type thought processes, which are often based in nothing more than rumor. My buddy's dad's uncle, was down there and saw this room with all this writing. Okay, we can't utilize that as anything that we can build any sort of basis on because it's pure speculation. So anyway, so back to Atlantis. So Atlantis here, Little St. James here, Straits of Gibraltar here, Bermuda Triangle here. Okay. So let's zoom in a bit closer. Here's where I think we can start to put the puzzle pieces together. If we postulate that the Caribbean Bahamas might have been more of a complete landmass before the cometary impact, it's not unlikely that we could have had a colony of Atlantis there. Okay, so let's go back to Google Earth for a second here. Straighten it up a bit. Okay. Now, this area got hammered once pretty hard, 65 million years ago. This area obviously has been hard hit, and this is a highly tectonically active area. Everybody remember the Haiti earthquake not long ago that flattened it, and that gave the Clintons the opportunity to go in and do their thing? Well, I mean, that's right here. And we're not talking that far. It's on the same ridge. And tectonically, it's on the same plate. This whole plate line, if I were to go to, in fact, I will do so for you folks. Boom, 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 boom. We're just going live right to it. Okay. I mean, here's in the past day, there's the earthquakes in that area. Okay. Now we can modify this and we can go 30 days, all magnitudes, bloom. Oops. Oh, I hate this thing sometimes. Let's start that over. Sorry. Use that thing all the time and it does that to me every time. Okay. I mean, this is the earthquake map of that area in the past 30 days. Okay. So this area is hugely tectonically active. This is not a surprise. This is like its own personal little ring of fire. I mean, you know, as Anons, a lot of people get all up in arms when they see earthquakes. Now, oh my God, look at an earthquake. It's got to be a dome or it's got to be something school's happening. Not really. Earthquakes happen. I mean, it's part of the planet's process. You know, I don't even start to pay attention to earthquakes until they hit about 4. Okay. I live in the Northwest. I live in the Seattle area. I mean, we get them from time to time. We're not exactly immune to them. I mean, I've been through a couple high 6s and 7s, and they're not. Admittedly, ours are different than like in California. California quakes are much shallower than what we have up here. We have what are known as deep subduction zone quakes, because if you look up here, and again, this is 30 days. So, I mean, you're seeing all this stuff. I mean, this is not abnormal. This is normal 30-day quake activity in the US. And this is from all magnitudes. I mean, if I were to take and do it right, I'd cut this down to 4.5 and up, and you wouldn't see hardly anything. Okay. Those are the only ones that you need to pay attention to, are the big ones. Even 2.5 is questionable, but there's still a lot of them. But I mean, if we go all the way down to, 0.03, I mean, you could drop a rock next to a seismograph and get that. Okay. It doesn't take anything. I could my fat ass could stomp heavily around a seismograph and probably register a 0.5. I mean, they're pretty sensitive pieces of equipment, so it doesn't take a lot to get them to go off. Overlap the heat map Fitbit where? On Atlantis? Yeah, 6.8 is pretty normal down there. I mean, you got to remember Chile is the site of the second largest earthquake ever. Yeah, down California is shallow because of the way the San Andreas fault. It's a strike fault instead of a subduction. So, I mean, if you think of it, it's 2 plates running this way. I mean, everybody talks about California falling in the sea. That'll never happen. The plates don't even run that way. One plate's doing this, one plate's doing another. They're not doing this. Okay, so California's literally never going to fall in the sea. But they're sliding along each other, and it's at the surface. I mean, the deep quakes in California are 5 kilometers. That's not very deep. The 7 we had up here probably 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that was down underneath Puget Sound, deep, was like 35 kilometers down. It was way down there. And I mean, it shook. I mean, it made my knees wobble, and I happened to be in a place that was built on an old lake. They filled the lake in, and I could feel the building swaying because the whole thing was doing this for the next 10 minutes because it still had a little bit of liquefaction going on. You could feel it, doing this, and I was like, because it was an old building, I was like, I want out of here. But anyway, the 6.8 or whatever we had about 5 years before that, it was just, like a strong jolt. And it felt like a bus hit the side of the building kind of thing. And that was it. It didn't do any damage, didn't do hardly anything. I mean, it did some damage near the epicenter, but I mean, we get really deep quakes. So when people talk about it, you got to understand that depth plays a role, the type of quake plays a role, where the quake is located. I mean, it's not just, oh my God, it's a 5, or oh my God, it's a 2. Generally anything below 4 is just, whatever. It's just enough to let you know that something happened. 4 to 6 is going to really vary depending exactly on where the quake is. If I wouldn't want to be around a 6 that happened on New Madrid, because that's one of the most, for some reason, that's a very vulnerable area. But a 6 here in Seattle is like, whatever, it doesn't do much. So because it's so deep and the energy doesn't transmit the same. So people have to understand that there's those differences. It's not just the same. It talks about the number talks about the energy of the quake, but that energy on the surface is different depending on everything else. So you can't totally rely on that number. And I wish people would stop just going gaga because they see a 2.5 earthquake somewhere. Just settle down. It's probably just an earthquake. In order to determine what it is, you have to take and overlay this with, one of the things that you can do here. And this is the USGS website. I mean, this is a great website for people to use. Let me see if I can, there's a very important thing here. Advanced options, output options. Where is it? I can't find it now. There's a place where you can turn on the earthquake hazard map. I don't have it here, but I do have a Google Earth version for the US. And what it looks like is, okay. Whoops. Hang on. Okay. What it looks like is this. All right. And if we were to take, and this has got, you can see the fault lines out here in red. Here's the Juan de Fuca plate, the North America plate. You can see right here along this red, basically high risk zone is the San Andreas fault. And you can see the break here where the San Andreas starts. So this is not a subduction zone. This is a slip zone. You got New Madrid out here, and then all these other areas. Well, if we take and we put this on here, give me just a second here. I just got to take this. Okay. Oops, did I not save that? Okay, you can see all these earthquakes. So this is actually, I just did this in the past couple weeks. So this is pretty important because this is up to date. Okay. So anywhere that you see red, yellow, orange, or yellow is an area that's not uncommon to see earthquakes. It's really not a problem. Okay. And you'll see that throughout the country, most of the earthquakes fall readily within those zones. They're not outside those zones, except here in the middle of the country and down here. And even here, this is in the blue and the green. It's not that it's uncommon. It's just not as common. Now, where you start to question is when you see things like this cluster up here in Minnesota that's out in the middle of no earthquake land. You're not supposed to be getting any earthquakes, but you see clusters of them up here and up here. Those are the ones you start really questioning. And even this stuff out here, although most of this can be attributed to fracking, but this is 2.5 and above. You don't see too many fracking earthquakes that get above. I think the biggest one I've ever heard of is like a 3.0. So some of these are fracking quakes, not all. Differentiating between them is going to be really difficult. It's going to be depth related, and you can't always trust the USGS info on the depth. So, I mean, a lot of times if it's indeterminate, it'll set it at 0 or 10 or whatever. So, but I mean, all of these earthquake patterns, I mean, you see this cluster in Idaho, everybody's been going on and on and on about, oh, look, it's right in the middle of an orange zone. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, it happens. 4.0 is pretty good size for a fracking quake. That's pretty damn big. But anyway, so total slide. Sorry, I didn't mean to get off on this, but we kind of got there and I wanted to show people. And so many people get up in arms because they see a 2.0 or a 3.0 and it's like, stop it. Don't even talk to me till it gets above 4. And 5 and above is when we start to get really interested because those are really interesting. Now, as far as the dumbs go, I've done some work. I have shown that there are some dumb and earthquake correlations based on what we know dumb locations to be, but not all by any stretch. So each individual case needs to be looked at. So we'll get out of that. You guys are getting way bigger group of information than I was planning on going, but that's okay. It's how we do it. We just kind of go with how it is. So my thought process is that there was a landmass that existed at one point in the Gulf here. Okay. And this basically initial comet came in and probably wiped a lot of it out. And then the younger dryas impacts came along 60 million years later, probably after a society had repeaked. And it's kind of one of those things where, wrong place, wrong time. So if we consider Atlantis was sitting here, did I tag Atlantis? I did right there. Okay. Now, the thing that I want to bring to everybody's attention about the reason why I think this could potentially be something important is we've got Bimini Road right here. Bimini Road is, for those of you that aren't familiar, is that it was either a wall or a road, but it's very obviously constructed that's underwater right off the coast of Bimini, of all places. Gee, imagine that. And they are basically, it's a straight line for 3 or 4 miles of, looks like a road. Okay. So, constructed, very obviously constructed. Oh, don't get me going on expanding Earth. Although I will say that there is some potential for it. If that was the case, we'd be having to constantly redo our calculations on global diameter and mass. And so far as I know, that has not been happening. And the curvature would change as well, because the more we grow, the curvature would become less across the same distance. So things like ballistics and civil engineering and things like that will be constantly having to adjust their calculations. Also think of things like bridges. They would be spreading apart. They would be literally ripping themselves apart, if, we don't have that. So, I mean, I think there's some practical ways we can look at things and go, that's probably not happening. So do I think that that over the course of thousands of years that we may see a growth of a foot or two? Yeah, possibly. You're going to accumulate some mass from dust and meteorites that are going to be coming down from above. And, there's going to be shifting of stuff. I mean, the general theory has been that instead of rising, it's going to mostly fall because of erosion and stuff. But, well, diameter is 25,000. Is that diameter or radius? I believe the diameter is 25,000 miles. It's going to fluctuate to some degree based on gravitational pull from the sun, the moon, any major planets are in the way, but it's not going to be a huge amount. It's, a mile or two. But yes, it would take centuries. I've had conversations with so many people about so many things. I'm sorry, guys. I forget who I talk to about stuff about sometimes. So you'll have to forgive me on that. I oftentimes can't remember what I did yesterday myself. So it's just my mind does not work that way. I'm not very good at remembering those kinds of details. I remember these kinds of details. I'll go with these for now. Sorry. My apologies, but I got to keep putting this kind of stuff together. So anyway, we got some underwater pyramids that were potentially just discovered here off the end of Cuba. Let's see, what else did I find here? Oh, I might as well tag Bermuda so we know where that is too. What was this one? Oh, yeah, that was that. I had traced that out. I forgot about that. Okay, so we've got Bimini Road, we've got the underwater pyramids, we've got Little St. James. I've got another little program here, and hopefully it doesn't overload me, because this can do so. I will zoom in a little bit so it's not so bad. What this is this is a listing of all megalithic sites. The megalithic sites meaning anything that was we'll call it Stone Age, okay? And this is pretty interesting. If we click this, and it's going to take a while, it might crash my Google Earth. Okay, it didn't. There's all these separate megalithic sites, be it just rock art or some caves or, just different stuff, okay? This is a really cool thing. But, unless you've got one heck of a machine, it tends to really bog you down because there's thousands and thousands of points across the world. I mean, this does cover the whole planet. And I just killed it. Nope, it's saved. But as you can see it. Yep. Okay, we'll stay close so it only has to think about these. There's a lot of information there, and you can look at it and you can see that there's been, stuff that has happened, but you see all these really ancient sites up in here, but there's less so down in here. Well, why would that be? If I'm saying this is the center of some sort of civilization, shouldn't there have been a bunch more sites here? Well, what if something happened that wiped most of them out? Absolutely and completely, totally destroyed them. Like a major flood. Okay. So let's take this off because that absolutely destroys the performance of the machine. I have a very good computer, just not quite that good. Let's go back and let's lay the Younger Dryas impacts on this again. Okay. So we've got this Younger Dryas impact field. Okay. Now imagine that you get a string of meteor cometary or meteorite type impacts in the water. Okay. And all heading this way. What's that going to create going this way? That's going to create one hell of a set of tidal waves. I mean, you're going to get not hit once, you're going to get hit 5, 6, 7, 20 times, depending on how many landed in this. I mean, as you can see by the number of impacts that are all over here, there could be dozens of impacts in the water. Okay. So that's going to be devastating to island areas out here in the mid-Atlantic. Okay. Including Atlantis, which happens to be just off to the side of where this is, and this is just the theoretical impact line. This is not real. I mean, we don't know. This could be more. I mean, there's more impact craters down in this area too that could easily be part of the YDB stuff. They just haven't put the two together yet for whatever reason. And water-wise, I mean, if you got stuff that's hitting here and here and here, that's going to affect this because it goes out in a ring. Okay. So, I mean, we saw what the earthquake did to Japan. Now imagine if you had an impact like a meteorite, multiple of them, multiple cometary impacts that made up a wall of water coming at you. It's 100 foot tall. Okay. We haven't seen anything like that in recorded in modern history, but it has happened in the past. That's going to be something pretty significant that's going to do a lot of damage and ain't going to care how big it is. It's going to take it out. I mean, the pyramids might have survived, but that would have been about it. Okay. So that would explain why there's very few megalithic type structures on these islands. Not because they weren't populated. I mean, you never know, but the whole planet's been hit with meteors and meteorites so much. People don't realize how much we've been hit. I mean, you just look at the moon or Mars and you can see the impacts there. And there's no the Earth has been subject to just as many impacts as those have. It's just because the atmosphere gets somewhat mitigated, and because of the water, we don't see most of them because they happen in the water, so they don't create a crater. And the ones that create a crater on land, we have erosion because of the atmosphere and the water and the rain, and they tend to fill in. So, and we'll touch on that a little bit. I've got some that I want to show you guys in a bit here. Yeah, there was that 1700 earthquake that devastated Japan that caused a tsunami over here on the West Coast. And the Indians, the Northwest Indians actually have records of it, and it just swamped the West Coast totally and completely. In fact, the poor Indians didn't know what to do. Good to have you there, Enzo. Appreciate you coming in. So if we take that into consideration, it's possible that cometary impact could have definitely wiped out Atlantis and plus whatever they had here. Now, thinking that Atlantis was an advanced civilization is, and figuring that they probably had evidence of, let's just say that they were the pyramid builders. Okay. So we got pyramids in Egypt over here. We got pyramids in Central America all over here. We got pyramids in Asia. We got pyramids in India. We got pyramids in Europe. We got pyramids. We've got pyramids freaking everywhere. Okay. Is it that hard to think that if we centered all of that, Atlantis could not have been the center of that? So, there's that. Pyramids would have survived that kind of catastrophe for the most part because they're inherently very strong. Do you think there's some sort of massive reaction like a comet hitting us if we anger God enough by inverting what is good? I think that we were trying to come up with an answer, or the ancient we, I should say, was trying to come up with an answer. Okay. We know that there was a planetary event that created the flood, and I'll use the term myth. Okay. With that said, something like this would have definitely created it. And we don't know that the impact field ended here. It could have continued around. Because we know that even the Asians and stuff have a worldwide flood myth. So there's no saying that this impact field didn't extend out in the Pacific quite a ways and create quite a bit of havoc over in this neck of the woods too. So, I mean, we're just assuming that this is the only point it stopped. Hell, it could have wrapped around and ended up covering the lower part of this down Africa down here too. So, I mean, it's possible. Yeah, nines are. I think there was 4 nines in the 1900s total. There was one in Alaska, one in Japan, two in Chile. The Alaska one's the largest one ever recorded. It was a 9.4. Chile was the next one with a 9.2, I believe. Those are the only two with coastlines big enough to create that kind of an earthquake. You've got to have massive tectonic break for that to happen. And it's not often the pressure builds that high, and it's not often that there's enough coastline to matter. That's why when they talk about a 9 up here in the Pacific Northwest, I kind of snicker and say, no way, because there's not enough plate length for it to get that big. I don't know why they haven't taken that into account, but they haven't. High 8s is, I think, the biggest we're going to see up here if and when it finally goes. And it's going to be so deep, and it's going to be off the coast far enough that I don't think we're going to see quite the catastrophe that they keep predicting. Now, Seattle itself may be in trouble because Seattle is built on landfill for the most part. They built it up based off of scooping dirt up and building flat areas. So Seattle, downtown Seattle especially, might be in hurt, but the rest of the communities, I don't think so. Out on the coast is going to get hammered hard, but as a positive, there's not a lot of people out on that coastline. That's a lowly populated compared to the inner area, the I-5 corridor, the Puget Sound area. And Puget Sound doesn't have enough water to create any issues. It might, a couple hundred yards inland, but that's about it. There's so many hills and stuff that it's not going to get broke. I mean, we could even have a tsunami come in straight of one at Fuca. In fact, I'm straight in line with that problem. I don't think it'll happen just because of the angles and stuff. It would have to be like a 1 in a million angularity shot to make it happen. So I'm not that worried about it. And I think they've overestimated that one a lot. I'm not saying that there's not going to be some damage, but I'm saying that I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as they predict. Portland, on the other hand, if one happened and the epicenter was not far off outside of Portland or Vancouver, those guys could have a little bit rougher time of it because they're closer to the coast. They got the Columbia River right there. So that's a perfect ingress for a tidal wave to come in. And they're both fairly low lying. So there could be some issues there. But Seattle area is actually a lot more protected than Vancouver, Portland area is. So my take on it, but hey, what do I know? I'm just an amateur. So we've got these cometary impacts that could potentially wipe this out. It explains Atlantis. Another thing I want to show people here is where did I put those? Oh, great. They're all the way up there. I got to pull them down so I can see them. Here we are. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm doing some work on another idea that I'm thinking. Have any of you heard of the Tunguska event? It was an airburst meteorite or comet, or they're not sure, that exploded before impact on the Siberian Peninsula, Tunguska area. And here's some pictures of what that looked like. Okay. And bear with me here as this loads. I've got a lot of stuff running right now. Okay, I'll zoom in on this a little bit so you can see. Okay. You look at the trees. Here's another one. Again, the tree's all blown down and over. Now, first time I saw this many years ago, I was struck by the similarity between that and this. And this. And this. The last three I showed you were the forests around Mount St. Helens after Mount St. Helens erupted. Okay, and obviously most of you are familiar with Mount St. Helens and the destruction and stuff that caused. So there was a lot of energy and power in these events. And if that gives you any indication, I mean, Mount St. Helens was a big event. I mean, that was big. I mean, I heard it and I was over 100 miles away. Okay. So, I mean, it sounded like a guy was shooting a shotgun across the street. I mean, that's how loud it was. Okay. In fact, that's exactly what I thought it was, because I had a neighbor across the street that used to hunt for moles in the morning. He'd get up early in the morning and wait for him to start pushing, and he'd go out there with a shotgun and shoot the mound. That's how he killed his moles. It was the 80s. It was a different time. Anyway, so I'm up on Saturday morning watching cartoons, or Sunday morning watching cartoons, and I hear this bang, and I don't think anything of it. 15, 20 minutes later, the news flash comes on, the TV, and I start seeing what's going on. I go run and wake up my parents, and later in the day we go and drive into Linwood and get up on a bridge, and you can see the plume from Mount St. Helens 100 miles away. With something else. I mean, it was incredible. So, I mean, and just think of the power to create all of that energy and all that impact and blow those trees over like matchsticks. Okay. Now, that Tunguska event produced the same effects as far as the forest goes in the immediate area. I don't know how far reaching the Tunguska effect was as far as diameter. I don't know if it was 10 or 15 miles. I think St. Helens laid trees down 15 miles from the explosion point. I think the trees were fanned out from that. Tunguska may not have been quite that big, but it was close. It was at least 10 miles. Okay. So just think of that. Okay. We know how powerful St. Helens was and how much that moved. I mean, how much land moved, it did everything. It just devastating. How much stuff that put in the atmosphere. Okay. Now, can you imagine if we had 30 or 40 Tunguskas all in a row along this line here? Okay. I'm trying to illustrate here the kind of power that we're talking about so that people understand that this is not a small event I'm discussing here. This is a major catastrophe that would have just wiped out anything coastal and certainly anything island. And, and if it hit directly enough, it probably could have swamped and maybe done some damage, We know that sea levels have risen quite a bit in the past 10,000 years, because global warming. But, as the ice caps have melted off, coming out of the ice age, the last ice age and stuff like that, the shorelines have disappeared. So it's entirely possible this whole area was inundated. It's possible that the cometary impact caused a change in the weather patterns that caused a melting pattern that caused a sea level rise. So Atlantis could have gotten scrubbed by the impacts and wiped out and swallowed by the sea, as the story goes. And then after that happened, it could have easily been back up again, but over time, because think about it. If we had a really advanced civilization and the core of that civilization got wiped, that would mean that everything fell into chaos. Everything fell into, there was no source of any of the, there might have been a few survivors in the colonies, but as a whole, they were not enough to keep the civilization itself going at that level. Okay. So you have to kind of think about what that cause and effect is. Okay, so you've got individual spots that will have and individuals who had say and power and sway. Well, these are the giants and the greats of old that we hear in myth and the story now. You know, these are the survivors that were trying to piece things together after this catastrophic event. Okay. So Atlantis itself went away, and pretty much anything that would have been, I mean, all the ships that were on that and anywhere out there would have been destroyed. You know, I mean, there was nothing left that would have been ocean going. Okay. It would have been absolutely wrecked. Okay. The only thing that might have been protected might have been down here in this area of Africa where, you know, it would have been shielded for the most part from any tsunami type activity. Okay. But I mean, that area of Africa has never shown any great civilization, you know, propensity. So, you know, I don't think that there was any major colonies down there. I mean, it's other than South Africa where we've got the ancient mines of Solomon potentially. I don't think we have much down there at all. So with all of that in mind, and that's a lot to keep in mind because there's a lot there, and I'm not saying this is 100% sure or anything. You just piece it all together and you see what's there. It's hard to ignore the fact that it is potentially correct. I don't know. I like it, but it's my idea, so of course I'm going to like it. Where I see real impact looks like giant footprint. Yeah, man, that's going to because of the shape. If you were to look at the flat version of it, which I can show you, it looks more like a curve. It just is because it's on the globe, it appears straighter than it is. So we get back here. I talked about that impact crater. I try to draw out again. But let's go one step further here. Okay. Now, there are other impact craters in the world. And I'm going to turn off we can remember this impact field. It covers pretty much everything that we're going to be talking about. Okay. So I'll turn off that so we don't need that because that just kind of obscures what we're looking at here. I want to show you this impact crater, okay, because this is an impact crater. And you can very definitely see that this is an impact crater, all right? Now, let's measure it. Come on. So it's about 37 miles across, okay? That's a significant crater. I mean, that's not a small crater. I mean, the one in Arizona, that big one's only, a mile and a half across or something. I mean, I've got a meteorite out of that, it's the size of my hand. And, I mean, that's tiny compared to this. I mean, this is a huge impact. And this falls within the younger dryas impact range. Okay. Do I think this one's that young? I don't know. Possibly, but it's close enough to water that it could have had an impact, and then there could have been, a tsunami that came in later and partially filled it in. I wouldn't rule that out as a possibility. Okay, so we see that. Now let's go back here to one of our favorite topics. All right. And CERN. Now, the thing that I've noticed about CERN recently, and some of this is more recent than I wrote that thread. So let's do this. Let's do a funky little thing here. Let's draw a circle. Okay, is everybody seeing what I'm seeing here? I see an impact crater, at least a partial. Okay. And again, there's CERN right there. Now, we've already established Aleppo as being the point of one of the impacts. Now we have CERN as another point of impact. Are they looking for something in these craters? Are they after something? Do these craters give them power? Is there something in the craters that gives them something that we don't know about? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. When I start seeing coincidences, my antenna go up and start twitching, and I start trying to figure out something. So at this point, we do start bringing CERN into the equation. Okay. And this is where the ley lines are going to come into play. Now, I'll just read through this part of the thread, and we'll go back and we'll look at it in Google Earth. CERN is a Swiss DARPA. Basically, they're the European Union's version of our DARPA program. They're not exactly good guys. We know about their... Okay. I'm not going to make you guys watch this, but what you need to go is you need to go watch the Gothard Tunnel opening ceremony. Yes, I did know about that, Minnie. Just watch the ceremony if you haven't seen it. If that doesn't tell you the direction that CERN is going just by watching it and getting a feel for what you're seeing, I don't know what will. So it's straight up plain satanic. It's it's not even subtle. It's horrid. Okay. So CERN has a Large Hadron Collider, which is the largest atom smasher on the planet. It's 27 kilometers long. Okay. It's the largest of its kind. And there's a plan to build a larger 200-kilometer one as well. So the current one is this little one here, and then the plan was to build this larger one. Notice what one of the hub sites is called. Alice. Certain things just keep coming up again and again. Then we have Shiva the Destroyer at the entrance to CERN. Not Hindu gods and goddesses are a little different, but Shiva is not probably the one that I would want to have out front. It's not a good thing. So what does a Large Hadron Collider do? Well, it basically puts a ton of energy into an accelerated atomic particle up to as close to the speed of light as we can get, and then smashing it into a block so scientists can see how it disintegrates and what things come out of that disintegration. Okay. And this is actually what happens. I mean, you can see the curly cues and stuff. And the scientists can tell based on the direction and the curl and the strength and how far off, the speed and the spin. They can figure out mass. They can figure out spin. They can figure out all sorts of stuff. Okay. The thing that gets most people worried isn't the particle tracker destruction of it. It's the power put into it and the fact that it's whizzing around that circle at near the speed of light. Let me put that let's do some math to put it into perspective. The speed of light is, we'll call it 300,000 kilometers per second. Okay. That's 300,000 kilometers per second. So there's a pretty significant speed involved here. Okay. And that's in space. In the atmosphere, it's going to be slightly lower than that, but we'll just use that as a round number. Okay. So I've laid out the Large Hadron Collider here, so you can see the size of it in comparison to the lake. Okay, it's 3.62 kilometers. The circumference is 22.76 kilometers. So I was just a hair under it, but that's pretty close. Okay. Now, also notice here these two ley lines. You got a blue and a blue. All right, and it's kind of situated right in the middle of those. We'll touch on that in a minute. Okay. So at 300,000 kilometers per second, that means that in 1 second, a particle travels around the LHC over 13,000 times in 1 second. Okay. That's pretty phenomenal. And the amount of energy to create that is astounding. We don't understand necessarily the amount of energy that they're putting into this. In fact, I'm not even sure that we know what they're using for the energy, because as anybody that knows the Einstein's theory of relativity and understands particle physics understands that as you near the speed of light, mass becomes nearly infinite. So it takes more and more and more and more and more power to get to c, or the speed of light. Now, even if it's a subatomic particle, it still is going to take a phenomenally huge amount of energy to get it up there. I mean, terawatts. I mean, even more than that, petawatts, or whatever the next one is. Okay, it's going to take huge amounts of power. Okay, well, where do we get that power from? I don't know. I mean, I just watched Christmas Vacation. You know, it's a nuclear emergency. You know, backup. Click. You know. You know, and who knows? Maybe they've got something that we don't know about, and that wouldn't surprise me. But they're putting in a ton of energy, and that kind of energy can really cause big issues. You know, I mean, it's not something that they that you play with lightly. And like somebody posted, you know, and literally has a story about ripping a hole in the dimensional fabric of scientists disappearing into God knows where. And it's possible with the amount of energy that they're producing. It's possible that they are able to create a literal wormhole or a tear in the fabric of space-time, or interdimensionally. I mean, we don't know. I know a lot, but I don't know that much. Yeah, there's actually quite a few particle accelerators around, Camilla. It's the thing that you run into those is that the larger diameter they get, the more dangerous they are, because they can put even more energy into them. Now, what we know is that sacred sites around the world have been situated on ley lines. From pyramids to cathedrals to monuments, ley lines show us that there was a particular belief that they did something. In fact, I believe that this was actually one of the secrets of the Masons, is that they not how to build, but where to build and how to align to according to the compass cardinal. So we go back to our trusty Google Earth Pro, and I'm going to show you something. One of my projects that I was working on, and I'm still working on when I get the energy and desire to do so. Where is it? There it is right there. As I was starting to map all the pyramids in the world. Okay. Let's dive in here. Okay. Now, there is a ton of pyramids on the Nile, as you can see here. And yes, I've mapped every one of them. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up here. I'm going to turn on my ley line grid. Okay. Now, they call this the first node, the one right out of Egypt. I'm not sure why they do that for sure, probably just symbolically. But if you look, you'll notice that this main north-south ley line, there's a whole ton of pyramids that are right on it. In fact, if you go down far enough, where were they? Okay, there's your three. There's the three at Giza. Okay, and you got the Sphinx. They're right there. Okay, so you've got this ley line and this ley line, and you're pretty much at a junction of them right here. I mean, they're just a matter of a couple hundred feet off. All right, and then all these other pyramids are built pretty much right along that ley line. Not any of them are on it, but they're all really close. Let's go look at a cathedral. Chartres cathedral. Okay. Chartres is a pretty well-known cathedral. Oh, that one's not on a line. That's interesting. I had been told that that one was. But it's pretty close to a small junction, small node. Okay. So we get CERN here in the middle. We've got Atlantis, which lies on one. Got Little St. James here, which pretty much is smack dab on a ley line. Oh, I also want to point something else out to you guys when we're here. Here we've got a nice little shot of Little St. James from the air. Okay. What's not known is that Jeffrey Epstein had also bought Greater St. James. And as you can see, he was turning it into another one. They were working on building a bigger, badder version of Little St. James right here. So people need to be aware of that. And Water Island is right here. So there's Little St. James, there's Water Island, okay. And then Necker Island is right there. I believe that's Necker Island. I noticed that it's not coming up with any label right now, but I'm pretty sure that is. I can prove it here, but it's just a second, but I can recognize the little thingies. And this is also another sub-rated spot. So this is Branson's little getaway. So they're all real close to each other. I mean, yeah, Necker, Little St. James, and Water all right here. And they're all three subs. They're all three known traffickers. It's all right there. But this ley line is the key. All right. Yeah, he was expanding. That's what a lot of people don't realize is that he was building Greater St. James into a bigger version of Little St. James. He might have been doing a more public version on Greater and then going to make Little St. James more reserved for the private gatherings, the fun, as it were. So, and we got these, other ley lines. Oh, here, let me turn my pyramids off. We don't need to be seeing those. Okay, so we have all these ley line nodes. And what I think was happening, and basically the rest of the thread is just covering this, is that I believe that they had found a way to pollute the ley lines. I believe that CERN's main focus and main goal was to change the harmonics of the planet. Okay. Remember right after they turned CERN off a couple of years ago, there was that 17-second bell-like ring of the planet that every seismometer picked up? I believe that that was the white hats resetting the harmonics of the planet to a positive harmonic instead of a negative harmonic. After they killed CERN and after they captured Little St. James, actually the hopping rabbit shape island is not Roth Island. It's actually Ross Island, which is where McMurdo base is and Mount Erebus. I'll show you guys that in a second if you want. But anyway, back to the ley line thing. I believe CERN was used to pollute the ley lines. I believe it was used for them to let's just, I'll use this as a illustrative purpose. Think of the Force in Star Wars. We have the Sith and we have the Jedi. Okay, we have yes, it originated off the coast of Madagascar. Actually, just 15 miles. I've located the spot and had it marked, but I don't think I have it on here right now. I was working on it and I got sidetracked. But the origin was, I thought it came from the Great Rift initially, which was right in this area here, and that kind of was worrying to me. But it was down here somewhere. It was off in one of these small islands. I can't remember which one it was, but it was down in this area that it happened. If it had been up here, I would have been really worried, because this is a triangular. If you think of this point right here as being a point of being put, this is going to sound really, really gross. Think of a zit, okay? And how as it raises and grows and gets more infected, it raises and brings a point, okay? Well, that's what's kind of happening right here. All right. So, and what you're seeing is the fracturing. The Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden are actually fracture zones of that. And going along this way down into Ethiopia is the Great Rift, the Great Fracture Rift. The Eastern Rift Valley is what they call it. Okay. And it's a pretty amazing area. There's actually some, one of the two lava lake volcano, or one of the 5 lava lake volcanoes in the world, is in this Rift Valley. But it's raising, it's being pushed up. It's like the planet's got a zit that it's trying to get rid of. We don't know what's pushing it up. There's an upthrust from somewhere under there that's coming up, and it's raising, a certain number of centimeters a year. And my worry was that's where it was originating from. And then there's some Indian legends, Native American legends about the planet and giving birth. And well, anyway. So, yeah, that could have gone that way, but anyway. So I think that 17-second bell was a way to reset the harmonics of the Earth. And I think right at that time, the bad guys lost their mojo, as it were. And that's when they lost their contact. They weren't able to as effectively communicate with their guy, as it were, their being, their deity. So it's kind of interesting. And I also think that explains why we have so many of these guys that are heading down to Antarctica. If you haven't read my Antarctica thread, you'll know what I believe down there. I really strongly suggest you go back and watch last week's video. If you haven't, I cover almost all of that in that video. There's a lot of good information there. It will explain some of my belief processes. And I believe that the ley lines tie a lot of it together. And I believe that they were using the ley lines as a way to power themselves, as it were. They were able to draw energy from, negative energy from the planet, as it were. And, that was something that we pretty much put a stop to. That's what I think CERN was, and that's what I think its behavior, its pattern was. I think once we captured that entity from Little St. James, which I believe they were also, because again, you got CERN there, and then you had that huge power source potentially right there, right close to this huge node. We know that the Bermuda Triangle was something. I really think that this all ties together, and it's a global thing. You want to see the grid on Ethiopia? Yeah, Upper Nile, another grid, another big node. But anyway, that's my whole thought on that one. Okay, ley lines. Ley lines have different purposes. And what I'm going to do for you is I am going to, instead of trying to explain it. Oh, and I wanted to touch on this, the Great Meteor Table Mount. Why would they call this little island out in the middle of nowhere that I've identified as potentially Atlantis the Great Meteor Table Mount? Why? Unless there was something about it that had to do with meteors or comets or whatever. So is it entirely possible that it was wiped out by a meteor or a comet? I don't know. Now, if you go look at the wiki, it says that it was named after the ship, but I found that happen so many times that I began to really get suspicious. The ships seem to be very fortuitously named. You'll notice that when you go to watch the Antarctica thread too, that Mount Erebus was named after the one of the ships in the fleet, and as was Mount Terror. After a while, that explanation gets a little thin. So I'm saying that there was very potentially a powerful entity, not an entity, but I'll call it an imbued object. Think of it as an idol with power or something. It could have even been something from the Atlantean era that had a connection or a way of utilizing that power. And that's why they focused on that island specifically. And that's why they put the temple there. And that's why they did all of that. It wasn't, I mean, there was thousands of other islands that they could have gone to. Why did they pick Little St. James? Why specifically that one? But anyway, hang on, Mike. Let me get the. And from the same place I'm sending you, you can actually get the same overlay for Google Earth that I use. So there you go. And that explains what the different colors are and all the stuff and the meanings. So then some of the derivations. Do I necessarily 100% believe in it? No. But yeah, Moritzik very well could be another arc-like thing. I'm not going to say that it couldn't, because we have definitely seen that, with the Ark of the Covenant and the Ark of Gabriel, and the Ark of Gabriel just came to light just a couple of years ago. So, I mean, we've definitely seen some very, very, very interesting stuff going on that's outside the norm, that's for sure. Anyway, yeah, that's what I got. I mean, is it 100% provable? No. But does it somewhat line up? Yeah, it really does. It explains a lot of stuff, a lot of things that we don't necessarily have explanations for or answers for. But anyway. Oh, well, since you're here and you're talking about celebrities that have islands, here. How about a worldwide map of all the islands that are owned by celebrities? And that's the ones I know of. I haven't even delved into the ones that are here in Asia and stuff. Ark of the Covenant is definitely not electrical. The Ark of Gabriel is plasma. I can sort of semi-prove that. But if we get down in here and we start looking, now I did this in correlation with Corey's digs. She had already done some digs on some islands, so the stuff that's marked on black are the ones that were her islands that she had come up with. The ones in orange are all ones that I have, and we'll get back into that area here. But okay, you see Necker Island, you see Little St. James, Water Island. All these other islands are still islands that are owned by other people. Okay. And we've got some down here that are Corey's Digs, Petite St. Vincent, Orchid Island. I mean, look at all this stuff. These are all islands. Every one of these is owned by a celebrity or a money person. Okay. Now, some of those islands that are already owned by pedos in Greece. So, let's see. Still, there's don't know. There goes through more parts of faith. Yeah, the Trinity thing is something that I don't think a lot of Christians are ready to accept yet. So we'll just leave it at that. Yeah, I really hope that there's a lot of cheap real estate between all the stuff we're going to confiscate from China and all these celebrities and billionaires. It'd be nice to be able to get myself a beachfront place. Philippines has probably got some issues. Problem with Philippines is that they're, kind of their own thing. They don't have any independent islands that are owned. So it's all government. There's a group from here along Belize. And these are just the ones I've been able to find. There's others as well. I mean, there's so many more islands out there. We get up here in the Pacific Northwest. It gets pretty amazing at what you find. We got 512 Cat's Paw Lane, which happens to be Oprah's address. She doesn't own the whole island. She just has a piece of property on it. And it's right there. It's actually a nice place. Believe it or not, that place was for sale at the same time I was looking for a house. And I had actually seen that house listed and looked at it while it was being listed. And oh, wow, that's a gorgeous place. Found out Oprah bought it later. I was kind of like, eh. But there's an underground area here that was shown in the advertisements that mysteriously has disappeared. Supposedly James Mattis has a home on the island as well. Allen Island was owned by Paul Allen. James Island, I forget who owns that. It might have been the Macaws had that one. Spiden was somebody else too. Whole San Juan Island grouping is screwy. Whidbey Island is another one. This whole island has got a ton of spoopy stuff. I did a big dig on a house, a $6 million survival compound that was for sale here, right in this area. And, I didn't know who the guy was. It was just the house and the kind of house it was. And we dug into it, and it turns out that there was all sorts of shit that was wonky with it. I mean, the guy was like a former CEO of Petco, but he was a silent partner. And it's right across the street from a cement plant that's owned by turns out that it's owned by some German company that's, partially partnered with Cemex. And we know that Cemex is part of the big bad thing because of their patent for human blood and concrete. And I mean, it just all connects together. Everything that you look at connects to something else. There's no stopping. It's just incredible. So anyway, but there's a lot of stuff. We got Larry Ellison, who basically owns 95% of this island of Lanai. So that's a done deal. And we know Hawaii is really spoopy. I got to do some work on Hawaii. I've got some stuff there I got to put together. There's some questionable stuff, very spoopy things that have gone on there. So let's see how here. Oprah was a pre-Ellen. Yeah, Oprah opened a lot of doors. She created a lot of problems, and her wealth generation was utilized such. Heidelberg Cement Moritz, I believe is the name of the company. Oh, yeah, you got it. Heidelberg and Cemex are tied. They're both two of the largest cement companies in the world. They're huge. And Heidelberg had bought this company that owned the place that was right across the street from this quote unquote survivalist compound on an island that's known for human trafficking. So anyway, just it all starts adding up and putting together. But if you look at this, I mean, look at all these islands. I mean, there's just so many islands out there. There's no way you could track them all. I mean, look at all these. Every one of these little yellow dots that you can see here is an island. I mean, there's just so many of them. And that's why I laugh at people who say, well, there's no way that people could have made it from over here to over here in ancient times. Well, why not? They just have to island jump. Islands are there. I mean, here's a perfect path right here. That's the longest distance somebody would have to go is right there, probably. What is that? 800 miles, maybe? Oops, that's the wrong tool. Still 2,300 miles. It's a pretty big path, but I mean, it's not 10,000 miles. And who knows, 10,000 years ago, some of this stuff might have been sticking out of the water. So the theory is that the cement factories were a way for them to dispose of bodies and blood, mainly the blood, because they were able to utilize it in their processes for making concrete, because there is a U.S. patent for stronger concrete due to human blood content. So, and maybe that's why they used to sacrifice slaves to when they were laying foundations. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised about the ancient Mediterranean anchors. In fact, you saw a folder there, Ancient America. I'm busy working on a thread showing that we've had Romans and Egyptians in the Southwest 12,000 years ago, So there's a lot of stuff that we are just now becoming aware of that, individually can be easily dismissed. But when you start mapping it out and you start looking at how close stuff is or the pattern of the distribution of stuff, you go, there's no way, that this was an accident or anything. Yeah, I really think that knowledge is, again, think about who would have had that knowledge. Who were the builders? The Masons. Okay, think about that. That's one of the secrets that the Masons had. The blood mixed in the mortar. Yeah, there was the stone with the Jewish inscription. So, but there's so much that's intertied. I mean, every line that we follows back into 5 or 6 other things that we've all. I mean, we could continue this for months. It's all connected. It is literally all connected. It all goes back to the same source. It goes back to the same groups of people. And it goes back to the same motivations. It all goes to the same spot. And that's when you know that you're on the right track, is that it keeps coming back to the same places and names. So anyway, I want to make that a separate cast, so I'm not going to screw that up by showing all that stuff. But a lot of neat stuff there, guys. I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of things that we need to open our eyes about, be aware of, learn from. I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I know that because of the breadth of my studies that I see a bigger picture than a lot of people do. So I put connections together that not many people do, and it's neat because I'm just looking at the world a little differently than many people do, and it's kind of a fun thing. But it doesn't mean that I'm right. So it just means that I've got different ideas. But anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much that whole Atlantis thread. That's pretty big deal. If you take a look at it in the big picture, it's definitely something that's pretty incredible. I mean, we need to learn about our history. We need to learn about the truth. So I believe, Kay, that we are heading in that very direction as we speak. I think that we are all getting on the same wavelength, as it were. Quantum physics has proven that prayer works. We can call it prayer, we can call it meditation, we can call it whatever you want, but people putting thoughts in a certain direction as a group has an effect on the universe in the way that we want it to. And we create our own destiny literally by that. A lot of people look at the books like The Secret and they kind of, yeah, whatever. But the mechanics of it were actually exactly right on. They were telling you to use it for wealth and gain and stuff like that, which is not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use it for the betterment of everybody, including those around you. So I think that as more and more people get on the same wavelength and start focusing on positive versus the negative, and positive as far as all of us as a group instead of just personal gain, then I think we're going to start seeing some things. But it's going to be very, very, very interesting. The next 20 to 40 years is, I hope, going to be some astounding things. I just can't even wrap my mind around some of it. I think the whole way that we're going to live and the whole way that we exist and the whole way that we daily go about our stuff is going to change drastically. I hope it does, because none of us is doing well with doing what we're doing now. None of us like going to work 9 to 5. None of us like being the wage slave. None of us are working for our own benefit. We're working to get paid to, so we can survive. Yeah, I'll probably be dead by then too, James, but we'll at least be able to see the change for the positive, and we'll be going in the right direction, which will be a huge weight off of our shoulders and off of our hearts compared to what we've been seeing in the past 20 years, where we've been spiraling, circling the drain. So, we can't be selfish about it. We got to be looking at the greater good, and and we have to all have that in mind when we're doing whatever we do, be it politics, be it personal choices, anything like that. We have to think. I think one of the starkest things that I've seen in change in the world in the past 20, 30 years is the fact that not one person has any consideration or any thought for what they're doing and how it affects somebody else around them. They don't really give a shit, well, fuck you, it's me. Well, no, it's not how it is. You try to be considerate of those people around you. Try to be considerate of how what you're doing impacts others. You can be it how you drive, how you get in line at the grocery store, taking your grocery cart back, just stupid little things that don't matter, but they do. They really matter. And it just shows the kind of person you are, I don't know. I some of that stuff really gets under my skin, because I always try to do the right thing. I always have. And, I see these people that, they behave like they're holier than thou, and then they just act like complete and total shitheads. And it's, kind of frustrating. I'd like to think most of us aren't, but anecdotal. I mean, I deal with the public daily. My job has been dealing with the public for the past 40 years, and thanks, Alyssa. Appreciate it. Um, it's dealing with the retail public has not gotten easier. Let's put it that way. People are more demanding. They're much more entitled. They do not. They don't treat people with respect. There's a very, 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 very big gap in people's behavior. I mean, if people behave that way that 40 years ago, 50 years ago, they'd have gotten popped, but now they can do it freely because that's expected. So it's just not right. So thank you, Carol. I appreciate that. The instant gratification is a big part of it, and we see it in society around us and all things. Hell, I can't say I'm not guilty of it as well, but I really think that consideration is something that we really need to focus on. Respect. Respect, I think, is the correct word. For some reason, our kids don't have that. I'll blame Dr. Spock on that one. But, you're getting me pontificating on social issues, and that's probably not a good place for me to go. Yes, very true. Both North Lake and Scott, you're both absolutely right. So, yeah, and it's very true, Carol. I don't know. I've always done the right thing or tried to do the right thing, and even if it's saying you're wrong, and or I made a mistake, and honestly, that's always served me well. So. Yeah, we're definitely in the middle of the spiritual dark. Have you guys noticed how many Anons are getting attacked? Just, family issues, health issues, things like that. All of a sudden, I mean, it's a literal war. I do believe that we are being attacked from without by many things. I mean, I've never fallen out of bed. Okay. Ever. 50 years. Never. 3 weeks ago, I fell out of bed and broke a toe. I mean, it could have been much worse, but, how do you slip out of bed? I've never done that. Haven't done it since. But, a quiet voice, he got a bacterial pneumonia and started ate a hole in his lung, and he doesn't wear a mask. I mean, it's just there, and I'm not talking just spiritually. I'm talking physically. Some of us are physically being attacked. So, we need to all keep everybody in our prayers, and we need to lift each other up, and we need to be just positive as possible. That's the thing I struggle with so much is that I tend to get wrapped up in what's going on, and I don't necessarily keep the real positive attitude I should. So. Well, we'll get there, and that's what I'm counting on. Every delay is like another hot dagger stabbed in part of me, but it is what it is, and it'll go as fast as it needs to get the job done. I'll share this with you guys. Some of you may have heard me say this before, but I'll continue to say it because I think it's important for everybody to know. we are watching a movie. We're along for the ride at this point. The conclusion is foregone. The events have probably already happened. What's going on now is that we're watching the waking of the normies, as it were. We're living through what's got to happen in order to get those people back on board, to shock them out of their rut, as it were, to wake the sheep's eyes and pull their nose out of the sheep in front of their ass and look up and look around and go, oh, there's a world out there. And that's what we're seeing. And, you know, we as family members can rarely do that. Regrettably, I think a lot of people pushed their family too hard, and it isolated a lot of people. I don't think that needed to happen that way. And because I think events are going to be what's going to red pill people. And what we're going to have to be is we're going to have to be the strength for those family members and those people that we love, to bring them back and show them what's been going on, and what reality is, because they're going to have to relearn everything. They're going to have to relearn. You know, we've had time to adjust to this. Some of us have been thinking about this for decades, and even some people, you know, some of the people in chat, you know, they're fairly new conversions, but we've all had more time than the people that haven't converted yet. So yeah, I am human. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that they have to learn it their own way. And regrettably, as humans, we don't tend to learn the easy way. We tend to learn the hard way. So, and when they learn the hard way, they're going to learn the hardest. And those are the lessons that are going to stick. So they may be the hardest headed now, but in the long run, they may be the ones that are, you know, gonna be the leaders of it, because they're the ones that are going to be shocked the most. Yeah, we're here to help them transition. We're not here to do anything else. We're not here to, you know, and don't say I told you so, you know, as much as you want to. Maybe in humor after they've come around, and you can rib them, say, I told you so, you know, but do it in a good manner. But do not do it until after they've transitioned. So, yeah, it's horrid. I was watching a video today that somebody posted of this gal standing in the middle of what looked like Target, just going off saying, I'm not going to wear the mask anymore. Screw you guys. Forget it. It's a joke. It's a lie. And then there's all the people around her. Well, don't you care about anybody else? What if you get us sick? And she's like, how am I going? I'm not symptomatic. I can't get you sick. They've already proven that. And all the sheep were just bah, 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 you know, and it was just horrid to watch, because you just see all these people and it's just like, oh my God, you just want to blow your brains out. You know, how can people be that closed-minded? But they are. They really are. Sorry, reading what you guys are typing. Todd Stoffel. There's truth to that. And for those of you that don't know what Tunstoffel means, it means there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Nothing is ever free. Somebody somewhere always pays for something. You know, I can't blame technology. Technology is neither good or bad. It's like a gun. It's easy to blame the gun for murders, but it's not the gun that pulls the trigger. It's tools can be used for good or evil, both. It's up to the end user to decide what it's used for, and how it's used. So I have a hard time condemning technology totally, although I do struggle with the idea that maybe technology is part of the reason why we're in the straits we're in. So I wonder how far backwards we're going to have to go to make it so that we're at an ideal technological level while not being too technologically involved. because part of the whole cabal thing, and let me throw this out there because this is probably something I've not ever talked about. As many of you know, I'm a science fiction fan, as you can see by probably being able to read some of the books up on the shelf there. And a lot of the thought processes in some of this, and Arthur C. Clarke specifically wrote about it in his Rendezvous with Rama books, is a thing called the Nexus, and what he called the Nexus is that it's a place where instead of you exist as a physical person, you exist as a program in a computer. Your mind exists. And that is literally where the cabal is wanting to go. They're wanting to put all of us in. I mean, look at this transhumanism movement. Look at all this movement towards brain control by computer. And look at all the effort they're putting towards that. And, and even the movie Avatar is a perfect example of it. It's the ability to control a body remotely by computer. Well, what's the correlation of that? Okay. So there's an ancient Indian prophecy. And, I wish I still had it. I had it printed out in a PDF form. It was something I found 20 years ago. And I lost it somewhere. But the prophecy is that at one point we the people will be faced with the choice of staying in the present or staying on the earth, staying in the real, or going off in this world of not real. And basically what it is what I see is this not world, is this world where we are taking our consciousness and turning it into a technology. We're turning it into, a brain in a box. And, that's the thing that I think we all need to stay away from, because really what the bottom line is going to be is that that's going to be the death of the soul. So, somewhat many, I'll agree, but I disagree because the cyborg is implanted. We're starting to see that with the transhumanism. They're doing the contact lens that has all the information. Pretty soon it's going to become actual implants. There are people that are utilizing implants. There's been multiple video games where you have that kind of thing. Fallout's one where you utilize implants for gains. This new one, Cyberpunk 2077, that just came out, that's a big part of the game. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, RoboCop, good example. $6 million man, if you want to go back even farther. That kind of thought process is, make it bigger, better, stronger, badder, and use technology to do so. But so far, I'm not convinced technology has been our saving grace. I wouldn't have been able to do anything I did today without technology, I'll admit. But I don't need to necessarily be doing that. I could be doing something else. So just all random thoughts for you guys. Yeah, the vaccine very well could be a problem in multiple levels. The RNA replication thing is a problem for me. The sterilization is kind of an issue too, but I don't plan on having kids, so I'm going to stay away from that. But anyway, yeah, James, if you look in, again, it's kind of strange. If you look at social pushes, meaning movies, books, video games, magazine articles, newspaper articles, things like that, it's pretty easy to detect trends. I remember telling my wife, 15 years ago, that as soon as I saw that they were getting the gay agenda normalized, I said they're going to be pushing for pedophilia next. And I said that 15 years ago. And guess what? All right, Scott, go red pill away. You're welcome, and I appreciate you being here, and thank you very much, and have a good dinner. Enjoy the gumbo. Sounds good, except I don't like seafood, but I like spicy, so can you do gumbo without seafood? Yes, they're showing of things in movies as Luciferianism. They have to get our permission, be it tacitly or not. They have to show it to us before they do it, and if we don't object to it, then it's okay. So, yeah, you're right, Muncie. I mean, I don't want to throw any stones at anybody because people are free to live the way they want to, and I'm not one to tell them that they're wrong or right. But there's a point where you got to draw the line. Where is that line? As soon as you start hurting other people, is that line, as far as I'm concerned. And do I think the gay movement is that? No, I don't. I mean, people have been gay for millennia. I mean, as long as humans have been humans, that's been going on. But when it starts getting into the belief that children can be involved, that's where I start drawing the line. And again, that's been something that's been going on for millennia too. But we're supposed to be better than that. We're supposed to be. I mean, isn't that what we're taught? Isn't that what we're shown? Isn't that what we're told? That's what makes us better than the animals. Is that we can make those decisions and choices and not be like animals. But apparently those that are telling us that we are supposed to be making those decisions are not themselves making those decisions, which I find oddly strange and ironic. But hey, whatever. I'll still choose the higher road and be the good person. And yes, children are children. It doesn't matter where you are or what you do. I mean, they're still going to be kids. So you got to protect them. That's what we're here for. I agree, Millie. And anybody that sees them as such has got problems. The problem I think is that, and I've put some thought into this, and it's kind of a strange thought process to do, but I don't know. I'm one of those people who likes to try to understand. I think it's because that people that are attracted are not, they don't see them as individuals. They see them as objects. It's objectivity, or objectivism, as I should say. It's possession. It's ownership. It's all sorts of unsavory things that an adult woman would never accept. So they have to transfer that onto somebody that can't accept it. Hey, it's possible it's a double recessive. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, these guys think in millennia. They don't bother with dozen years. They're willing to play the long game. Yeah, Moritz. I mean, they don't literally believe in those. Well, they do believe in those idols. They believe in those gods. They believe in that power, and they've always believed in that. And there's a saying: the greatest trick the devil ever played was convincing the world that he didn't exist. And there's a lot of truth to that, because that's what's gone on. We have been convinced that the devil doesn't exist, and that is not true. We know that. I honestly can say that I think it's a rare individual that can step up and say they were not abused. I think every one of us have dealt with it in one way, shape, or form. It's regrettable, but I think the sooner that we all realize that we're not alone in that, the better that we're going to all become. So, because we'll realize that it's not a shame on us, it's a shame on the people that perpetrate it. The shame lies in the perpetrators, not in the victims. The victims are the ones that live with it, and they either choose to become victimized further by it for the rest of their lives, or they choose to rise above it and let it mold them into something bigger, better, and stronger. They take control of it versus letting it control them, and that's what people need to do, and we all need to understand that, and we all need to help each other get to that point. So it's hard for some people. Not everybody can do that, because a lot of people live in that emotion, and that's part of the reason why I think Trump and Q is trying to teach us to be a little bit less emotional, because we've been led to where we are in this world because of our emotional attachments and our emotional fears and our emotional connections. And if we need to look at things a little bit more logically, a little bit more dispassionately. Not saying completely, not at all. We can't give up the human side of it, but we also need to not follow our heart 100%. We need to follow our mind and our heart equally, and discern which is the right answer before we make any choices. Well, as a boy, I was taught to be nice to everybody. I mean, it's just there's just bad people out there. Period. It doesn't matter who, what, when, why. It doesn't matter. It's neither male or female. It's just what it is. So, emotional booby traps. Yep, exactly. And they know them. I mean, then they utilize them totally and completely. They hook us by them. I mean, yeah. I mean, perfectly stated, Minnie. I mean, don't fear. That's the thing, is you can't. As soon as you fear, you let them win, and because they can use that against you. If you turn that off, and they can't use it against you, and they have no control over you. That's the bottom line. Something you kind of learn one way or the other as you grow up. I guess I learned it earlier than a lot of people, because I haven't really been scared of these guys ever. More scared about what my fellow people are doing and falling into around me. But now I know why, and I understand why, and Q has opened up my eyes to that, and that's why I fight so hard, and I dig, and I try to open people's eyes, is because I want people to see the world the same way I see it. I want people to see what I've seen and understand what I've understood, and I figure the best way to do that is to show people. I'm a very visual person. I learn visually. I explain visually, and that's it's an important part of why I do what I do. It's not for self-aggrandizement at all. It's because I want to help people see, so they see the truth, so they understand what's coming, so they understand the bigger picture, so they're not falling prey to this bullshit again. I mean, one of my most frustrating things right now, and please tell me if I ever get this way, is I see people building cult of personalities on Q based stuff, and it just frustrates me, because we're just falling for the exact same trap that we're in. I don't want people to fall in because of who I am. I want people to fall in because of the knowledge, and then I want them to go out, and on their own, I want them to go and teach others. I just want to be the catalyst. I want to just start the fire. I don't want to be the one. I don't want a bunch of followers following me blindly. I want people questioning me. I want people saying you're an idiot. What do you think about this? Let's have discussion. That's why I like having these conversations after the fact too, because it allows us to, allows you guys to question me on things. So. I hope that Antarctica thread does some good. That one seems to have made a lot of impact on people. There was a lot of effort put into that. That one took me some spiritual battles to get through. So, all right, what do we got here? Now, we've been going for 3 hours here, guys. So I think I'm going to cut her off, and we'll save some more for the next time. We're always going to have plenty to go over. I appreciate every one of you. I appreciate you all being here. Really appreciate the fact that y'all support me the way you do. I really do appreciate that. But also keep in mind, we gotta get you guys up, and we gotta get everybody else up, and we need to get everybody going in the same direction, on the same page. Muncie, shut up. You're not going to get a 5-hour stream, not on a work week anyway. If I'm off for a couple months, I might do one like that. But we need to get everybody going. So, and we're getting there. And I appreciate all that you guys are doing. Appreciate the follows and the shout outs. And don't get your hopes up, Northlake. This is going to play out longer. I mean, there's still too many people asleep, and we still haven't gotten to the point. We're not going to see, and I'll give you guys a little bit of the timeline that I think is going to go on. We're not going to see anything major happen until after Haiti breaks. Haiti is going to be the clue that we're getting close to the end. So we've got all this stuff that we've got to go through first before we see that. Haiti and the Clinton Foundation. Haiti and the Clinton Foundation. That's going to be the clue that we're getting to the end of that side of it. So just be aware. Anyway, have a good night, guys. Be well, and take it easy, and do your best to prepare and be ready for all those around you that you love and care about. So, all right. Good night.